Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them. Whether they're new or old, famous or unknown, it doesn't matter. We will get to it all. Now, for today, we have got another large series that we need to take a look at. Yes, I know, another one. And I don't know if we're going to be able to cover it all in one day. Gonna be honest, probably not. But we're going to give it our best to go, alright? So I know that today there's supposedly a BFDIE episode. However, here's the deal. I'm not exactly sure if we're going to be taking a look at the BFDIE episode in this video or not. Like, this is a decision that I have to make depending on how, like, it's currently going, you know? On how this that I'm currently doing is currently going, right? So we need to see, all right? Because the other show that I watched today is titled Battle for PlayStation 5, or Battle for PS5, which is a show with 3 seasons, although there's actually split into like 5 seasons because of the way that the numbering goes. But that means that, you know, we would have to jump we would have to jump into it, we would have to do all of that jazz. So how about this? You can check the timestamps. The next section is either going to be episode 1 of season 1 of Battle for PlayStation 5, or it's the flippin' Battle for or it's BFDIE. Sorry. I'm getting distracted. Or it's BFDIE, okay? So the next section is either BFDIE or Battle for PS5 as a one, okay? You will find out in due time. Alright? Okay, sounds good. Alright, here we go. Go on, future me. Go. Hello, it is time to have a little late night chat about BFDIE 7. Why? Because I want to. I decided to leave it for this night as the last thing I record in this video because you know, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like BFDIE, it's a very relaxed show, so I feel like I should watch it in the most relaxed possible mood, and in this case it was the nighttime, so let's go with it. So the halfway point of BFDIE has hit, we're all chilling in a yacht, and then budget cuts officially hit. For the first true time, we end up having budget cuts in BFDIE as well, a show with a surprising amount of budget so far, but overall, we end up having ourselves, you know, a classic little BFDIE episode. If I'm not mistaken, I think that this is the first BFDIE episode with a change in writing, right? I saw people pointing this out, that I think Florence Chappell's no longer available in the writing department for this episode, I think, which is interesting. And in the meantime, when having this BFDIE episode, it's very classic, you know, it does very classic jokes, it does very simple jokes, but I personally enjoy it, you know. Again, with BFDIE is just so simple. Like, BFDIE just acts itself out in such a simple way. Like, it just does it. It'll do a joke here or there, it'll do one or two kind of like shock humor with like, oh hey, this is a surprise death, right? And it's gotten pretty creative with the way that these characters have died. It takes the use of like taking some really basic arc ideas and kind of taking them in a couple of different paths, but never complicating it, right? Like the Fern toothpaste shenanigan, right? Like, for example, this arc with like toothpaste and fellas, right? Like, it takes it in a couple of different directions, but it never complicates, all right? Like, let's say it never goes more than 100 meters or any direction, you know? It takes a couple of paths, it does a couple of things, and overall, it's, you know, interesting, it's kind of fun, and, you know, I don't mind. And I think that people that are criticizing BFDIE, it's like, really, like, I'm sorry, I don't know, it's just kind of weird, because, like, maybe it's the character they don't like. I mean, in this episode, there was a little bit less, I guess, characterization, I would say, because the characters end up being forcibly limited in terms of their speaking ability, right? Meaning that there's not as much characterization you can add onto them because they're not talking as much. So that is, I guess, a detail that you might point out against the episode. But other than that, no, this episode's fine. Perfectly suitable, to be honest. We end up having ourselves the challenge, which ends up being to want the yacht back. So to get the yacht back, you need to get a couple of things that are hidden in the bottom of a lake. Weeks, that's nothing. Of course, announcer says that because by now we're on like BFDI 9, and BFDI is monthly, so they're there for 9 months. So yeah, that is true. You need to recover the 6 items before you can get it. They're all random items that are down below. Sidewalker has to find the perfect speck of sand. Sticker, the big fish monster. Fern has to find a boat. In the meanwhile, we end up having Toothpaste needs to find 100 shells exactly in one fell swoop. Then we end up having needing to find a sandcastle, a perfectly made sandcastle that just so happens to be a billion of in the ground. And then Money needs to find hot dog. So yeah, I like that the announcer reasoning is just very direct. I like it. I like the guy's just being for real. He was like, yo, why would it be there? It's because, yo, I thought it'd be funny. Like, you know, I like that. I think that's honest, that is truth. And I think that's true stuff. So, all right, nice. Anyways, Needy is interesting enough. Remember, Needy is in this episode very proactive. You'll notice. It's proper change. You know, we have proper change from episode. From a couple episodes ago. You know, like Needy was like, oh, I need to try trying. And I mean, to be fair to Needy in this episode, there was also no scathing by this one. They needed to already get it done in the game because like, you know, they needed to come in now, so nobody was gonna do it for them. So yeah, Needy did indeed have to do this challenge. It's one of the few challenges they have to do, and I think that speaks to a crazy testament about how little they had to do in the other challenges, right? But I like Needy. I think Needy's definitely going to be an interesting competitor, right? Like, competitor that doesn't try to maximize performance, right? Because that is something that a lot of like characters in object shows, I think, to try to do, right? Like, there's characters like, oh, we have to be the best, right? And a lot of the time, you know, when there's a team in a safe position that tries too hard, they'll sometimes sabotage themselves and end up falling over, right? Or then there's going to be teams or characters that don't try at all and just neglect the show entirely. So it is actually relatively refreshing to see a character that tactically does what is needed. If Needy doesn't need to try hard a challenge to be safe, they won't. They're not looking for the top spot. The top spot doesn't earn them anything. It's not a points leaderboard, right? You just simply have to get it, like a points leaderboard. BFDI did that, but like in this situation, like, Needy doesn't have to, has to not get last the majority of those early challenges and got it done. And I mean, I think it's very respectable from Needy there, and ends up as a relatively unique character and relatively good character. So I actually like the current state of Needy a lot. Anyways, I would like to point out that doesn't this technically contradict with Teapot? Because if you remember, in Teapot, people cannot speak underwater, right? That's the thing. Because if you remember, right, one of my favorite Teapot gags ever is the dancing underwater. the speaking through dance. It's like hilariously like it's hilarious. I'm not lie. Because they couldn't speak underwater, they couldn't communicate, but then they learned of the talking through dance, and they had looked through like bear dances, talk a lot and everything, and it's like hilarious. But here the characters are just able to speak underwater, which is, I mean, dubious. It's a little bit of a contradiction, just gonna say it. I mean, of course, it'd be worse if it was just directly, you know, like, you can't speak. That is very true. Also, you know, the solitary nature of this challenge does end up also complicating it. Like, at the end of the day, there's not that much reason to interact with it. You know, people like Sticker end up being overall still saboteurs in general because, you know, that's part of their goal. They're trying to cheat, right? They're the cheater. But, like, in general, they end up doing their thing. So we end up having a miscount here from a toothpaste that drops by 4 and manages to get 96 shells. However, you can't go get 4 shells. You need to get 100 unique shells. Like, you need to get 100 shells in one fell swoop. That's the problem. But yeah, my favorite gag in this episode, I'm not gonna lie, it's just that little surprise. Like, I like with these shows, I think I really like it when they give a little surprise, you know, like when the joke is that something happens, not in a way that you don't expect but makes sense. Kind of like when you pull the lever, like, it went to the left, it went to the right. Then when you pull the lever, right, for the boat, and Fern just starts going levitating. Like, that's a joke that's right up my alley. Love those. Love those. Because, like, yeah, that makes sense that it's not going in a correct direction. But the fact that it's just levitating, like, it just wasn't what I was expecting, even though it makes sense. Which means that it ends up as a very rewardingly funny joke. But eventually, we end up having Needy pick up... another sandcastle getting up, but Money can't. Hot Dog doesn't want to help Money. Money decides that they just have to go kill Hot Dog, I guess, and they do manage to do that very quickly and get them up. Money's the first save. Then we end up having Needy, pretty brutal death there for Needy with Money. Needy proceeds to come back, just walks on water. Bro is like Needy like Luigi in Mario 64 DS. Like, I don't even know. But yeah, it's so funny. It ends up sucking up the water, which you can do apparently. Then you end up getting the thing from there. It ends up getting yeeted out from there. So Needy is safe. Good job, Needy. Then Fern keeps trying to desperately get their way back. It becomes a little bit complicated. Sidewalkie finds the perfect speck of sand, but then proceeds to get it stolen by Sticker, and then the fish monster eats Sidewalkie. So that's bad on both ends. Sidewalkie, desperately trying to get out, manages to yeet both of themselves and Sticker up. And since Sticker still has the speck of sand, Sidewalkie is safe. And then a fish monster with Sidewalkie in it is safe, meaning the Sticker safe. So they accidentally decide to help each other. Fern and Toothpaste are remaining, and at the last moment, Toothpaste has a suddenly random change of heart. Not exactly sure why. We end up going, okay, well, they were like, hey, we should eliminate Sidewalkie, okay? I mean, yeah, I guess, technically strong, especially since Sidewalk, has done a couple of kills on Toothpaste before. It makes sense. So basically they were like, hey, I'll help you if you help me. That is fair. However, I think it's one of those details where it's like, I understand. However, if I was Toothpaste, I would realistically... if I truly believed in the possibility of like the fact that Sidewalkie isn't safe, right? If I truly believe that, I would just go submit it and then go help Fern, because no rules is saying that you can't help out somebody after you're safe, but you have to lock down your safety first, right? Like, it's just not for any necessary type of like anything. You just simply gotta kind of lock in, you just kind of lock it in for your own safety, just so that so you just don't have to think about it and all that stuff. It's all very important. You can't be doing all this, but anyways, Fern decides that, for all of the bad things that Toothpaste has done, Fern is going to be bored for one moment, takes out one shell, and then as Toothpaste delivers the bag, has 99 shells, which means that Fern manages to be safe and get Toothpaste eliminated. I saw a bunch of people upset about Fern, I think, as well, around it. I don't know, this episode got a bit of backlash on the Twitters, so, sometimes I want to be able to have a quick discussion, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, one of the famous things that is to never listen to Twitter's opinion on anything, but I still believe that it's important to point it out as a subsect of opinion, right? Because Twitter is for all that Twitter is, right? Twitter is one of the few places where you will genuinely get discussion about object shows, right? Because it's not a thing that happens very often, right? It's not there aren't that many YouTube channels, that cover it immediately, right? Discords, there's a Jack and Jellyfy Discord, but that's a fucking ginormous thing, right? You ain't getting a conversation in there. Same thing goes for the official Discord or Riot. It's all those they're big things, and it's kind of difficult to get a discussion in there. And even then, especially afterwards, it's impossible to read. So it's not exactly getting there. So I think having so I think Twitter is a relatively organized set of like general opinions. Is still worth it to hear about. But yeah, Fern hasn't exactly done much, which sort of makes them a bit of a interesting character for sure. Oh yeah, Sticker ate the shot, dude. Why did they do that? Look, announcer saying they, that's a W right there. But yeah, I mean, Fern is that type of character where, yeah, Fern has truly skated by very much so, a little bit under the radar, because they haven't been an extreme character. But that's how you do it. That's how you do it in a reality show. There's always that person. I don't know if you've ever watched it. I don't know if you ever watched reality shows. The reality show, like, top sets, there's always that one guy that just kind of went by, that didn't try to make a name for themselves. They're just out here doing the challenges, getting, baseline support, not exactly, not being a threat, but not being a nuisance, just in general being there. And I feel like Fern is that for this season, right? In the same way. Like, Sidewalk, he ends up here as the pure game thinking, as the pure, strength thinking, I gotta do this to win the game. Sticker is more like, I'm gonna fuck everybody else over, right? For fun, right? So Sidewalk is more like serious game. Sticker's more like fun game. Needy is more like strategical game, right? And then Fern is the player. Fern isn't exactly doing much of anything. Fern is just playing the game, right? And then what is Money? Money is Money. They're the next out, surely. I don't know. I feel like it's Money's time to go already. I don't know if Money should probably make it to the final. I do remember what my prediction was for who would get out. I feel like I did say that Toothpaste was gonna. Did I say that Toothpaste was gonna get out? There was this wheel apparently in an episode that points out the elimination order or something. I don't know. I didn't look at it, so I don't know. But apparently the wheel in the freaking 1v1 game was the elimination order because it listed Rose, Jammy, Ruler, and Toothpaste, I think, or something. I don't know, but or David somewhere. I don't remember. Sorry, but I think there's a theory that the wheel might technically have had the elimination order leaked, and it's a terrifyingly bad mistake. But maybe, I don't know. We can only really know after. So yeah, you can kind of base it off the theory. However, in general, you'll only be able to really tell if it's a blunder after you're done. So is it really that much of a blunder? I feel like it's not that much, right? Winner prediction remains Sticker. Some people would be like, yo, Sticker would be a predictable winner, so it's bad. No. No, what do you mean? Predictable winner. What do you mean the winner's predictable, bro? What? Come on. What are you saying, bro? Sticker would be a great winner, It's for all of these reasons, Sticker would be a good winner. Oh, so that's predictable. They shouldn't win. No, the good winner should be a good winner because they did a good winner. If you can look at a character and immediately go they are winner and then they win, then that is, a nice showcase, right? If the character that does bullshit wins, right, then that's not good, right? So I personally think that Sticker winning would be perfectly fair, and it would be cool even, right? Because I think Sticker embodies a very, very strong player and a very, very strong competitor. So I think Sticker winning would absolutely be relatively cool. Do I think they will? Probably not. I don't think they will. No, okay. Here's the deal. I also think, however, that Jack Jellyfish wouldn't make Sticker winning. However, I do think that Sticker should win and has the best odds at winning if you were to just predict it, right? Because I don't think that Sticker will win, but I think that Sticker winning would make the most sense. So yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that is BFDIE 7. Not sure what the people were fussing about. I mean, it's BFDIE. What the fuck is there to fuss about? Really, what is there to fuss about? I'm so confused. What are we on, chat? Come on, stop complaining, yo. It was a cool episode, and alright. Okay, now, the other thing for today, which is Battle for PlayStation 1. So, I'm gonna do another section to transition into it. Okay, so the next section, I'm recording this after a recording session, so I can tell you what I did, is Battle for PlayStation 5, okay? So, Battle for PlayStation 5 is a ginormous series created by Frozen Pepsi. I have taken a look at the old stuff from it, so that is Season 1, Season 1.5, and Season 2, alright? That is what is in this video, and hopefully next time, probably as a standalone, we can do Season 3, which is the longest season, is also the currently active season. However, to get there, I was specifically requested a while ago, I think a month ago, dude, it's so far behind, that I take a look at the season 3 specifically, take a look at season 3 specifically. However, you can't take a look at the season 3 without watching the previous season. This is just objectively true. If it is marked as a season 3, I have to watch season 1 and 2 because that's how you're supposed to watch it. There's not too much to it, you can watch Teapot first, yes, but it doesn't make any sense, right? You need to have that knowledge, so I needed to watch it before I actively got to it, but yeah, we're working our way there, alright? So yeah, you're now going to me from yesterday to start Battle for PlayStation 5. Good luck to me, and see you, at the end of the road. Okay, so that is this episode. You know what I was spotting about this episode I think is really weird. It's one of the most random art style technically decisions I have ever seen. But pay attention, okay, to the eyes. Why is it that it is legally banned for the characters in this show to have eyes at the same height? They have to be different. You see, one eye has to be above the other eye, even in a regular scene. You will notice it's this plastic bag is the most egregious example of it. There's no reason for that eye to be below the other eye, but it just is all the time. I don't know. That's really interesting. That is something. But we end up having 18 contestants. What even are they? Hold on. Let's see. We got Blood Drop, Blueberry Juice, Bubblegum, Clyde, Coke Bottle, Cup, Dice, Dirty Bubble, Drive, Face Mask, Imposter, India, Instagram, Lemonade, Shark, Sheets, SNES Controller, Target Bag, Trident, Watermelon Gum, Water. Those are the characters. That is the lineup to the greatest show to have ever lived. So, yeah, it's interesting. We've got ourselves some characters. Obviously, this is very 2020 core. It is very 2020 core. I mean, it's always interesting to see these though. Because a joke show from the time, right? A joke show from the time. Is always interesting because, of course, joke shows tend to not really get views outside of the year they were made in. So, seeing a joke show that's proper 2020, there's Face Mask, there's Among Us, they're fighting for a PS5 because that had released and that was a meme, right? All of this stuff, it's relatively interesting to see such a 2020 core show. But anyways, the challenge is to make food. India decides to add something. Apparently, it's censored. I don't know why. What the evil thing could have possibly been used that censored? I have heard some wild words. Okay, I have heard some wild words in this in shows before. All right, I'm just gonna say it. So I don't know what it is that we're adding, but it's gotta be pretty crazy. India's not messing around. But yeah, they end up being up for elimination because of India's act. Who's getting eliminated? I don't know. This show was 1 billion years old. I mean, India screwed up by adding toot to the friggin' food. So we'll just say it, right? I guess we gotta guess them. Relatively solid voting screen though. I do actually like it. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The next few episodes are gonna be significantly shorter, right? No, the next few episodes... No, they get shorter eventually. And then they go... Okay. The length depends on the day of the week. Alright, found. Cool. Hit the target. Episode 2. Here we go. Okay, that is episode 2. So, alright, so as far as I'm aware, okay, what's going on is that for episode 1, they used the cup, okay, because it's a bigger feature, because there's 3 characters that are literally just glass bottles, but, like, I think they used the cup, and they made a smoothie in the cup, and cup still kind of, like, has a headache because of it. So then somebody decides to go troll them by, bringing the water and pouring the water, the character, into the cup, and then that way cup is full of water and water has nothing, which is really interesting when you consider that they're both technically the same object, because they would function differently, right? Which means that, like, they would end up that like that it would end up really interesting, because it's like cup needs to not have liquid to be okay, and water needs to have liquid to be okay. So it's interesting how, despite the fact that they're the same object, they function in fundamentally different ways, right? And I do find, voice crack at the center, and I do find that to be like a genuinely pretty interesting thing. So that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. But anyways, we end up having the elimination, where the eliminated contestant after for the elimination area just being dangling off of lava, by the way. Also, I would like to just point out, shout out to Kind Master. I don't, is it Kind Master? Is it Kine Master? I don't remember how you say it. But yeah, shout out to Kind Man. I remember that was that when like people use that, like, because I mean, that it's not that it doesn't exist, it's just that why would you use it nowadays, right? So now we got CapCut for real. So anyways, yeah, India proceeds to get eliminated because of course they did that. Seems like maybe in episode 1 they inserted Koei into it, which is kinda into the food, which is kinda okay. What? How do you even do that? But you proceeded to dropped into the lava, and you are now 20th place. Fair enough. The next challenge is to hit the target off of the it's a hit over people's targets with balls. If your target gets hit 3 times, your platform falls down and you lose, and you're up for elimination. Okay. So then a couple of thirds are happening. A couple of fellas are making some courageous jumps from platform to platform, getting other people off, until eventually what ends up happening is we end up going over to the Clyde's team or whatever. But I don't think these teams have names. But yeah, Coke bottle catches a ball on the sides. Let's lose. Yeah, we're gonna lose, I decided. So then they hit their own target, and then they drop down and die. Coke bottle's looking all nervous later, like you didn't explicitly meant to do that. I mean, obviously you should get eliminated, right? I mean, like, there's no defending this pattern of behavior. I mean, like, you fucked up, right? Like, you screwed up. You did mistake, you know? So that means that you need to get punished for it. But yeah, so far, I'll be interested to see how much this happens, because in both episode 1 and in episode 2, we have had a member of a team willingly sabotage the team. Which is an interesting thing. It turns out, by the way, all these videos are re-uploads, the ones on YouTube. Original air date is December 18th, 2020. The actual release date is, the release date of the video is November 11th of 2023. So that's kind of cool, right? But alright, let's go over into episode 3, which is titled Just Pick a Name. Okay, then, here we go. Alright, that is episode 3 of season 1 of Battle for PlayStation 5. Now, one of the things that you will learn when you watch object shows of dubious quality is that every object show with dubious quality, if it's truly of dubious quality, it will do the challenge titled Name Your Team. Last person to name their team is up for elimination. Because that is just what they tend to do. I don't know why. I don't know who decided. Like, why is this a unanimous idea that everybody tries to do? I don't really know. However, everybody decided that yes, it is a good idea to make the challenge being to name your team, right? And then have the team that loses be the last team. So that means that they don't even get a name. So that means that we don't even get to find out like what the names is, and it also obviously encourages bad names because it doesn't matter the quality of the name, it just matters that there is a name in general. So you can name your team Potato, and it doesn't matter as long as you name it Potato before somebody else does, then you will be safe. Okay. And yeah, look, this challenge is flawed in 1 million aspects, but yeah, at the start we end up having Dice be upset, being like, "Damn it, Cook, why did you do this to us?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, you see, it's because I actually wanted to get eliminated." Why? You didn't know that you fall into the lava. Did you want to burn in lava? What do you want? Yo, randomly, like, yo, my bad, guys. Actually, I entered this competition, but I didn't want to win. I want to lose, Today, I woke up being like, I'm going to enter a competition and lose, okay? Like, what are you doing? Come on, Code Bottle. We end up going into the elimination. I find the transition into the intro rather funny. It's like this freaking bouncing box, the generic effect. Anyways, then we end up having Face Mask argue with Shark until at the last second Blood Drop arrives and snaps the Shark in half, and then Shark calls them precious, but then also eats them on accident or not. It's a bit unclear. However, what we get to know is that we end up having the elimination time, which is not called elimination time, is titled Lava Time. So yeah, it's Lava Time, and expectedly, we end up having some very, very, very convincing crying. I mean, I got tricked by it. And then we end up having ourselves the eliminated contestant be none other than Coke Bottle with 23 votes compared to 4 for the second. So it wasn't even close. Like, there wasn't an attempt at sympathy or anything. It was just like, no, we're going to lose, I decided. And it's like, bro, you can't just do that. You can't just go, I decided that we're gonna lose, but then you did that. So yeah, challenge is to name the team. So the teams. Oh yeah, Water will sit out the team naming challenge. What do you mean sit out? That's for physical challenge. Okay, well, Water doesn't get to be allowed to name the team. The team has to go name themselves on their own. So what are the teams called? The first team is titled Team Epic, guys. Then we have Team Bag. And then that means that the other team is titled Team White, that Drive says. So that means that team's up for elimination. So you know what? I guess Water was an integral part of that team because they couldn't manage to name it without him. So fair enough. So they're up for Elim again. Who gets out? I mean, we did do the thing of mentioning, oh, viewers are going to vote you out if you do this. So let's say that Dice gets out. Sure. Why not? Let's go with that. Okay, ever since here, episodes tend to find themselves at 30 seconds long. So so the next few episodes, they're gonna be speedruns. Here we go. Oh, okay, I see what's happening. So these episodes are lost at the time, apparently, but we have knowledge of what happened in them. So that way we end up having an explanation of the episode. I mean, of course, I'd be the type of person to say, well, couldn't you remake it? I mean, you are much more skilled now, so you can probably do it a lot faster, but okay, I hear it. Anyways, I got it wrong. Clyde got eliminated with 35 votes. Sorry. Clyde eliminated 36. Dice got 35. So it's like, what the fuck? I got it wrong by 1 inch. Goodbye, Clyde. And then the challenge was to get Water the liquid back, and the team that lost somehow is Team Bag with Cup, Dirty Bubble, Instagram Target Bag, and Trident Watermelon Gum. Sorry. Who do I think is getting out? So do a random prediction. Instagram. Okay, episode 5, Stuck in a Forest. There's a reason why I tend to not watch viewer voting shows, right? Because there's this subsect called viewer voting, where it just ends up showing votes, right? The details about them, and then who's up for Elim next. I don't tend to watch those because what the fuck am I gonna add to them, right? Like, there's nothing for me to talk about. And this is just that. There's nothing really for me to talk about. So apparently we're in a 460 votes are cast. It turns out that the Watermelon Gum is the person who lost, who got eliminated. The challenge is to find Cup in the forest. Somehow somehow for imposter sabotage them. How did you sabotage? How are the teams losing? I'm confused. Find Cup in a forest. Like, only one team has to do that, and there's like way more teams. Whatever. So since they said that imposter sabotage their team, I'm gonna guess that they get out. In episode 6, no crossbows allowed. Okay, that is episode 6. So in this episode, we ended up having, expectedly, apparently, imposter getting eliminated, and then what ended up happening is to try to stand on the top line and not fall off. Crossbows are not allowed. Why the specification? What? Crossbows are not allowed. But you see, grenade launchers, bows, all of that stuff, very allowed. Just not crossbows. Okay, sure. Blood Drop, I guess, used the crossbow. Apparently, she yelled at Shark for the weird flirting he's done. What do you mean? As soon as anybody tried to go over, you Bloodjaw came in and murdered the person. You doing the yandere and you're out here and Shark's the problem. Okay. Alright, well, Blood Drop, I guess, is my prediction. Episode 7, Jump or Lose. You know, I'm thinking about this, and it's like, I understand that it's kind of interesting from a perspective of, like, you know, having the episodes there and everything. However, like, I don't know if this is needed. You know, making a video for every 30 seconds, right? I feel like this isn't really a necessity. Like, you could just compile, like, 4 to 7, and then have just, like, one video there, you know? Maybe... Like, I think you can come up with better excuses than that, you know? Like, in the way where it's like, you can make it work in universe, you know? Like, there's been cases of episodes getting lost before and characters going like, oh no, the video got corrupted, here's a guy explaining it, right? Like, I don't know, like, there could be a little, like, recap, you know, take some creative liberties, there's stuff that it could be done here, you know? This is just, like, the most basic possible way, of doing it. Apparently, Target Bag made Cup lose the challenge, which was to get to the other side of a table. So I'm presuming Cup gets out. In episode 8, which I believe exists, is titled You Can Run, but You Can't Hide. Okay, that is episode, I don't even know, episode 8 of the series. You know, it's really interesting because, like, you get the little 30-second, like, bits and pieces that just tell you the most broad information. It's kind of interesting, right? Like, it literally will just tell you, this is challenge. No, it'll tell you, this got eliminated, this is challenge, this is why the eliminated person proceeded to get out, and that's it. It won't tell you any of the detail about what happens. So here you get a little bit of an interesting perspective because, like, you get from little tidbits of dialogue here and there and like everywhere, right, about characters talk about the past episode, which, to be fair, to be pretty respectable to the show, there was in this episode a lot of mentions of episode 7. It's not an episode that I've seen, of course, but at least you could tell that there's a lot of past mentions, which is good, by the way. This is nice. That means that there is at least a degree of attempted plot permanence between, you know, the plots, because, like, one of the things at the end of the day, which shows like this end up struggling with, is that sometimes they feel too singular, like they feel too much like a singularity, right? Where it's like it's too this one thing and then this the other thing and then this the other thing, right? Like and then sometimes there's a little bit of an ununitedness. So at least that is something that this show was doing. Okay, you know, like this show was doing a lot of stuff very meh. However, this is one trait that you gotta respect it, because, you know, I mean, here's the deal. This is a 2020 show that it's like, it's lost media, right? It ends up having 4 more seasons after it, of which some are 2022. Like, we're in 2026 now, right? Like, I'm expecting a quality bump for sure. Like, I'm expecting the quality to get bumped up from here on out. So I'm kind of trying to see the potential, right? Like that's a lot of the time when I do. When I'm watching a show that is obviously low quality, however, it's getting up. However, like, it theoretically, you know, has a pathway up, I try to kind of look at it, you know, because that hindsight is important. So I'm looking at this being like, okay, the modern day Battle for PS5 probably going to be pretty interesting. So, let's see, was there any potential? Like, was there a foundation to build upon in the old stuff that you can tell, I think, carries it on, right? And while there, like, and you know, in a lot of cases, it's very much so kind of meh. Like, the pacing is the thing that absolutely hurts this episode the most. It is so boring. Like, it just, because again, it's just that detail of, like, it's when you're saying a line and you're kind of unsure of the line, so you do a little and then a little pause, and you say a little bit of unexcitedness because you're not too confident about it. Oh, they say right. Like that type of detail. It'll be okay from, like, in single perspective, like that one line is okay if it's like that. However, when so many lines of the episode are like that, you know, kind of slow, kind of feeling like they're being read for the first time and we only did one take of it, and like we only do, it feels like the entire episode is shot in one take, pretty much. That ends up being, like, really making it drag. You know, it really does make it drag, right? And, like, I mean, I'm sure that we know this. However, look, it's still important to point out. You know, it's still important to be able to show it. And it's like, you know, this episode, it's a good example to why gotta rehearse your lines. You know, gotta be saying the lines without without ahs, without any type of without any type of lack of confidence. You don't need to know the line, you need to say it properly, you need to say it with conviction, right? Because this is what happens when you don't. You get an episode that overall, the events of this episode are okay. However, like, at the end of the day, right, like that scene, right, with the fella going into the freaking whatever, wait, where do you even go? Into, like, the vent fella, and then the SNES controller latching onto them, right? It's like, that scene, it could be pretty hype at the end of the day. Think about it. However, in this, it doesn't really work because the characters end up speaking in such kind of a slow, oh, I'm reading this tone, that doesn't really end up working. And I feel like this is an example about why some of this doesn't work. So that way, you can, you know, look at it, you know, like, I think that at the end of the day, it's one of the ways to look to get audio shows to improve, right? Because one of the ways to get audio shows to improve is to, take a look, like, because of course a lot of the time people take a look at something that's good and try to find out why it's good, right? Yeah, that is a way. However, the thing about it is that at the end of the day, it is a little bit difficult to pick up what is good about something like BFDI or II because they're just so professional, right? Like, they're at a different level at the end of the day, right? To what one person's going to be doing. But then watching these type of shows that are a little bit lower quality, that do make mistakes, right? And being able to, as a viewer, right, point out, you know, be like, okay, this is wrong. Like, why isn't this compared to BFDI? And why is it? It's because it sounds unrehearsed, right? Why? It sounds unrehearsed. Animation, I mean, like, it's in general, it's suitable, you know, like, animation, don't review it, but in general, like, stuff that can be improved without too much like, you know, skill improvement. It's just that, you know, do some additional takes until the line is proper, right? Yeah, I will admit that like, the episode 7 recap, you know, that one thing that's for 60 seconds, they told me nothing about a debut. It didn't tell me anything about that. Come on now, you gotta give me at least a little bit of the information. You told me that you didn't tell me that there's a debut in the episode. Like, that's an important detail. But anyway, SpongeBob ends up joining. Challenge ends up being hide and seek. They end up hiding. I don't even know. Like, generally, I don't know. I think like the first 5 people that get found are up for Elam or something. And then, you know, a couple of them proceed to get caught. Like, they're all hiding in, like, bushes. The thing about this top hat is that this top hat isn't moving. Like, this top hat's supposed to find you, but they're not moving. So you end up just kind of. So the only way that characters got caught is they're either on the grassland for some fucking reason, or like they get pushed off of their bush. Because, like, for example, SNES controller and SpongeBob had like an altercation, right, or whatever, and then SpongeBob pushed them out into the open, and they're like, well, yeah, when they're in the open, the top hat that's not fucking moving is gonna find them. So yeah, Docs, even though that's clearly Drive Cup, Instagram, Target Bag, SNES controller, and Sheets are for Elam. I believe we're going to be going back into the 30-second recap land. Let's see it. Episode 9, Store. Okay, a little bit more of a detailed recap at least, which is nice. So I'm curious, like, where is this information coming from? You know, like, it's kind of weird. We don't have the episode, but we have the exact ratings of everybody. Like, where was this? Was there like a Google Docs or something? Like, I'm a bit confused. But anyways, we end up having the elimination be target bag with 34, one Warden Cup. Yeah, everybody here, you can tell how evenly split it is. Yeah, nobody really did that much in the last episode, I'm going to be honest. The challenge is to get food. The fellas got our sheets, which gave a spray bottle. Lemonade gave grape juice. Milk pizza won over grape juice. Okay, cool. Bubblegum and Instagram didn't give anything. And then SNS Controller gave who knows. Then is there. So sheets, lemonade, Bubblegum, and Instagram are up for Elam. Bubblegum didn't give any. Oh yeah, Dirty Bubble, but I also quit in one of the other episodes. I forgot to point that out. Well, Bubblegum technically didn't submit anything, so we'll go with that. Episode 10. Who's that? Probably a cat meowing. Okay, so in this episode, we ended up actually having a vote to save now, and it turns out that Sheets got out with one less vote to save than Bubblegum. I keep getting it wrong by one, bro. But yeah, they end up doing that. Sheets ends up getting out. Apparently, Instagram opens the door, which releases Firebook. Who the hell is Firebook? I don't know. But they just leave. Fair enough. They didn't want to deal with this bullshit. Then proceeded to apparently have the chance to keep a pillow fort up. Bubblegum rages a drive because they lost his team the challenge, and then that means that they lose. So I'm yet again gonna have to go with Bubblegum here. Alright, let's go with Bubblegum. Next episode, it's a real one. OMG. It's titled, What the Hell is Bubblegum Saying? Alright. You know, I don't know what's going on in this show. However, we sound fed up. I like the directness of that outro. It was just, I vote someone to save. And it just didn't say anything. It's just vote someone to save. And that's it. The words of wisdom right there. But yeah, we end up having somehow apparently everybody gets kicked to the sun now. I guess the show was doing some beautiful morning. And it turns out we end up on a spaceship. Audio qualities have worsened dramatically in random microphones like Drive. For some reason, you cannot hear them. They're so quiet. And it turns out that Bubblegum did indeed get eliminated with 20 votes. Goodbye. So then the guy turned into stone, bro. That's not even stone. That's like freaking fluorescent metal. I don't even know what that is. I guess turned into like some luminescent bullshit. Like that's metal right there. But yeah, I feel like this show is taking a lot of inspo from some other shows. You know, it's doing some beautiful morning and doing this and doing extra, which I don't even. What show did that? I know what show did that, but I don't remember what show did that. Yo, what show did that? Yo, I'm trying to remember. What show did the stretch? God damn it. You know, I should know this. I'm gonna be absolutely for real. Why do I not know this? Yo, that's weird. My brain not cooking today. Yo, what the hell? Okay, that's weird. Okay, I don't know. But, anyway, so we end up having SpongeBob quit because the AI website doesn't work. Let's go. The AI website which we use the SpongeBob voice doesn't fucking work. Love that reasoning. And also more people wanted crewmate to join. That's one of the reasons. So SpongeBob quits because I want crewmate to join. Proceeds to make somebody else join instead. They make Car Door join. Then why are you on about more people wanted crewmate to join? Then make crewmate join, not Car Door. What do you? Challenges escape the tube. It's apparently very easy. And some fellas proceed to do it. The glasses proceed to do it pretty well. Except for water, I think. No, and cup, sorry. And in the meantime, Shark also manages to dip. And then our new fella, Cardor, I believe, manages to survive as well. Which means that the SNAS Controller, Drive, Instagram, and Cup are up for elimination. Is this good? It's not a good challenge because, of course, it's one of those challenges where you do something to be safe. And that means that the eliminated contestants simply just didn't do something, which means that they didn't have screen time, which means that they didn't show up. So I have very little to exactly base this these chats with. But Instagram has been very lashing out, so maybe they'd get eliminated. I don't know. Anyways, time to go back and back again into 30-second recap land with episode 12. Good luck falling. Go. Alright, that is episode 12. So you see, this is how you do information. You see, there's a rejoin in this episode. We got told that there's a rejoin in this episode. Good stuff. Alright, there we go. Then they're having the eliminated contestant DB Instagram by a wide margin. They didn't get pretty much any votes. Goodbye, Instagram. You were pretty annoying. Challenge was to not fall off a building. Apparently, this is difficult. So, Blueberry Juice Cup and Drive are lost. And then the eliminated contestant have to vote one of them out. I love just reading what's on screen. It's great. It's my favorite pastime. I didn't know Object Catchup was so easy. But yes, they voted for Cup to get out, and then the rejoin happened. Only Blood Drop, Face Mask, and Indian Flag were in the voting, probably because they were the first 3 out, right? So let's say Blood Drop, no, but Indian Flag joins because they had a redesign and they were first, right? First out. Let's go with that. 13, incoming. Told you so. Told you it was going to be Indian Flag rejoining. Let's go. I got that right. That's one of proud gaming moments. So yeah, apparently we go back to the real life world, which is the one that we got to see at the very beginning of episode 8. Right when we dipped, we got to see what that looks like because there was a challenge to get to the other side of the table. And then Spacebook is mad because they took Ball and WJ since they were her contestant. Who the fuck is Ball and WJ? WJ? What? I'm not getting. This is not enough context. WJ, whatever. Challenges to get to the moon. 5 people lost. I guess that's pretty difficult to do. Dice, Drive, Shark, SAS, Control, Water. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Who am I gonna pick to go? Mini, meeny, miny, mo. The one I pick is you. Let's go. Drive. Okay, you're out. Let's go. Holy fuck, eeny, meeny, miny, mo is the That's how you predict it correctly. You just say Drive going out at the bottom 18. It was double Elam, which we didn't know about. By the way, I don't know. I feel like this is stuff like it doesn't get mentioned in the episode 13 for some reason, but it get mentioned here, and it's like, okay, well, mention it there, no? Because you know what happened in both. Mention that the double lead them in episode 14 because it's from the voting of episode 13, right? Like, that's clearly more. Like that's clearly more how it works, right? But anyways, what's next? So we end up having the challenge being to break a pencil. So alright, fair enough. The people who lose, majority of people manage to do this one, surprising enough, are Indian Flag and Lemonade. Should I do the eeny meeny? Yes, eeny meeny miny mo. Who is gonna go? I forgot what I sung. Eeny meeny miny go. Lemonade's out. Alright, let's go. Episode 15, blocked. Dude, I'm eeny, meeny, miny, mo is the strap, bro. You 100% accuracy. What the fuck? Okay. Yeah, I got it. Waker. Eliminated. Got no votes. Indian Flag was so many. Holy shit. But yeah, there's like zero info gets given on this episode. Just says that the challenge is to build a tall stack in 2v lot. Like there's no info given on this episode. Okay then, like what is up with it? I don't know, but I guess we'll find out. The losers are Indian Flag and Water. Look, I'm gonna try one more time. If it gets it 3 times in a row, I'm gonna retire the eeny, meeny, miny, mo system when it's on the top. But it has to get to at least 3. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Who's gonna get out? I don't know. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Let's hope for the one to get out to be correct. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Indian Flag. All right, episode 16, Shiny. Okay. I got it wrong. The eeny, meeny, miny, mo got it wrong, alright? But what the fuck's SNES controller doing there? They weren't here. They weren't in the episode 15. I mean, I still got it wrong, but like, what the fuck? If they were there, that would change the eeny, meeny, miny, mo completely. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. That doesn't count. Whatever. Anyways, Water gets eliminated. The challenge ends up... Oh, yeah, this is a vote to eliminate again, by the way. Why isn't it... Like, give the info. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of lazy. I'm gonna be honest and on it. Like, it doesn't give the information. It gets it completely wrong. SAS is for some reason up for Elam, even though the last episode didn't say they were up for Elam. It switched to vote to eliminate. Nobody says it because, like, what the why? And then the challenge is to get Diamond Book's diamond back, and then lose a blueberry flag. No, blueberry juice and flying shark. I don't know. Like, give me the information, and I have to like mildly figure it out based on context clues. So what the fuck? Okay, episode 17. Get out. Alright, this is like mildly pissing me off at this point. Like, who the fuck is computer? Computer? The challenge is to escape computer. Who is computer? Is it... Oh no, like, you gotta give me the information. You can't just say shit. It's like when you say Firebook. Who is Firebook? You know, like, this is the first season. I'm watching this first. I'm watching this in order. If you give me the information about character last space, but that, oh, it's probably relevant in season 3, I don't care. Like, I need to know who that is now. You know, like, it's kind of complicated. But anyways, I mean, maybe computer's that monitor, but I thought you were a TV. That's not a computer, unless it's like an iMac. Like, that's not a computer. That's just a screen. Like, whatever. I don't know. The contestants voted this time, which is info that we get to see here and not there. But okay. And the shark ends up getting out with 3 of the votes. We have, by the way, shout out to the freaking YouTube auto captions, because there's always some random song playing in the background, and here it's picked up the letter B. The song did not say the letter B. But okay. Alright, the last 2 episodes, they both are real. So, episode 18, Fixing the Problem. Man, it's always interesting when there's when we get back into watching the animated version of the show, because all is completely different. Like, no acid is the same. It's always hilarious. Like, they're all just it's all changed. It's all different. In terms of how this looks, I mean, it's very different style. Yet again, audio takes a very random dive in a, like, it's not better, it's not worse, it's sideways. It depends on the character. Like, we went from the Indian flag voice. I had no idea what the Indian flag voice was originally. It was very different than every other voice, which was kind of weird. However, I don't know what the hell it was, but like now it's just been massively vocoded, to the point where you cannot understand it. Again, it's really hard to make a vocoder work. Yes, they're like, there's characters like, you know, like Puffball that have managed to make it work historically. However, again, we're talking the high end of the high end, right? Like, those characters need to have the maximum amount of clarity to be able to make their voice work, right? If a suboptimal microphone is trying to do vocoder, you will not pick up a word, bro. I do not understand any of that. In terms of assets, I mean, like, they're fine, to be honest. I'm looking at them. They all seem relatively reasonable for the new style. There's a couple that I like quite a bit. I like the Sheets one, even though it's only present in the intro. But yeah, this episode suffers a little bit from the issue of being a little bit distracted, because it's like, it shows me a plot element and then it just kind of gives up on it. Like, okay, Firebook comes in and goes like, "Mwahaha, I am in the dark side." Freezes the Diamond Book, shoots a laser at the TV fella, right, which ends up taking knockback, and then they disappear from the episode. What? Where did you go? I thought you were here to cause havoc and get your contestants and take over the world or whatever. But no, you just did these 2 things and then you dipped. Like, you just did not appear again, right? I was just like, what? Like, what happened? Like, you know, like, it's kind of weird. Like, the evil plan got stopped 50% of the way there. Like, I don't know. It doesn't appear in the episode again. It's not even mentioned again in the episode. But yeah, they end up going over to try to get some tools to break open the ice. But first we have the elimination, where Indian flag ends up getting eliminated. And then we end up having ourselves, we end up taking a trip for some reason randomly in the trip. Remember, we're trying to unfree someone on TV. They're like, "Oh yeah, don't worry. Yo, my bad. I need to pick up an Xbox One," which is interesting. Didn't they do the Xbox Series X by then? They're not released. But anyway, yeah, they got scammed out of $300, because it was just filled with cement or something. So yeah, that's unfortunate. They end up going to the iPhone plug is super cool, which is one of the greatest store names in the history of the universe. And they proceed to talk to iPhone plug. We end up having to be disappointed because the face mask got eliminated. That happened a while ago, but apparently they made friends, and that's pretty good. They end up having with their friends. They have their own friends, and then they proceeded to give them the tools that they need because they happen to have them. They also shoot Indian flag after whatever the hell they said that I didn't understand. So they end up getting back. They end up freeing the Diamond Book, and since then they get to vote on which one should get out, Lemonade or Diamond. Lemonade. You get to vote for face mask. Wait, no. You get to vote for Blueberry Juice or SNES Control to get out. And it turns out that 2-1, the latest people, that help save them, and they're getting SNES Controller out. So unfortunately, because SNES Controller was, it was definitely one of the cool ones in terms of assets. So yeah, we're having our final two. However, Uno reverse card. Oh my God, immunity token that we never saw in the history of the world. Do you think it got mentioned in any of those 30-second recaps? Nope. At least maybe. I don't. Did it show up? I was trying to remember. I was like, yo, did this appear in like episode 8 or something? But I don't remember it, so I don't think it did. I think it appeared in something else. Also, by the way, I just like to. Oh yeah, interesting thing. By the way, when the TV was talking, right? They definitely said because when the freaking villain asked, definitely asked episode 10A. Like TV specified this a thing happened in episode 10A, so that means that episode 10 was a 10A and 10B. Like, this is knowledge, which is interesting considering. The episode 10 here, it's just a recap with episode 10 and episode 10. Or is that? Oh, wait, that's probably why it was divided, because it was like, who's that? And then it was a slash, and then probably a cat meowing. So that'll be 10A, and then probably cat meowing will be 10B, right? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, I'm seeing it. Okay, that's fair enough. All right, the gigantic finale is the name of the last episode of season 1, episode 19. Here we go. You know what? Fair enough. The computer was actually an iMac. I was saying it because I was like, well, there's no computer, there's just a screen except those Apple ones. And I was like, well, that doesn't look like an Apple one. And so, no, fair enough, it actually is. That's what that is. Okay, fair enough. That is the finale of Battle for PlayStation 5. We have ourselves some things which I don't really understand. Like, for example, everybody's like chilling in a hotel, which I didn't know that you could do, which includes like the eliminated contestants, which is interesting because that means that like at some point they have left their lava underground area at some point. So not exactly sure what's going on there, but yeah, they're here. For the finale, some characters just kind of appear. I don't even know what's happened. Some character get dropped down. Bandicam drops by from time to time. And then Spacebook, the hit character that showed up that one time, ends up collaborating with Firebook, the hit character that showed up like 2 times. And then we end up going there and be like, yo, we are both trying to destroy the battle for PS5 contestants. So let's go there and kidnap the fellas. So they're going to kidnap Ball and Watermelon Juice. Okay, here's the deal. The one plot point that still makes absolutely no sense about this, from the knowledge that we have, the one plot point that remains completely mysterious is why the fuck did they do that in the first place? It was like, as far as I'm aware, neither Ball nor Watermelon Juice are contestants in this show, right? Like, they never joined, because I never saw them get eliminated. So that means that they were just, like, why the hell did they ever get kidnapped? Like, what is the reasoning? Why? Like, in a way, it's like, when I just hear what these were, like, what is happening, it's like, yo, we stole these 2 contestants for just to be here and not even compete at our show from Firebook's show. It's like, oh, you know what? Like, maybe it's fucking Diamond Book's in the wrong, no? Like, the guy just kidnapped 2 people, right? Like, for no reason. Like, I mean, as far as we're aware, I don't know what the reasoning is. Nothing explained it, basically, right? All I know that Ball and Watermelon Juice were Firebook's contestants, and then they got stolen to be to be with Diamond Book, but not as contestants, just as people who were there, and then that's that. But they successfully steal them and proceed to dip away into the lair. We end up going into the room. We end up having some apologies from Target about being, yo, my bad for the things I said and the things I did back in episode 7. And so they end up doing that, and everybody ends up collaborating together, after apologizing, because Imposter's even there apologize. So then I'm going over there until Spacebook drops by and starts coming in with the attack, and then Imposter just comes in, and Imposter's on. There's not much to say. They just come in. They dead the kill, and Spacebook is gone. So I know, so much for being this ultra powerful being that can fly and is right next to the sun or whatever, bro. You ain't got nothing against Among Us Imposter. Okay. Yes, good stuff. Then we end up having them going over. We end up seeing a couple of assets that we didn't originally get to see, like for Coca-Cola bottle, which, but that looks whack. That looks wacky. Sorry, not whack. Looks wacky. That asset looks wacky. What is going on with that Coke bottle asset? Like, what is that? It's like a, what the fuck? What? But I don't know. That's a crazy asset. Right, I don't know, some fellas in the grass are just chilling. Then eventually we end up venting, because of course we do. Then we end up dropping down. The imposter is about to get a kill. However, it turns out that Firebook has a amount of brain cells, and actually just turns out that, oh yeah, these people are not very good. So Google, which by the way just exists there, proceeds to get yeeted. A bunch of people get yeeted. The guy starts paddling people away, so they end up having a paddle battle. They end up battling with ping pong paddles with SNES controller until eventually they get defeated, and at the last second, SNES controller, however, manages to distract Firebook and kick them into the lava. So good job, SNES controller, you win the PS5. Look at that, the PS5 in all of its beautiful glory. Look at that. It looks like, you know the Oreo meme where it's like freaking the reverse, like the Oreo but in different ways of saying it, and it like shows the different Oreos. It sounds like the reverse Oreo. It's like Oreo is like Roy, like because like the cream's on the side and the Oreo in the middle. But yeah, you end up winning it. Good stuff, SNES controller. I mean, I'm not sure how Nintendo would feel about it. I'm not sure if Nintendo would be too happy with one of their products, interacting with Sony. But like, hey, it goes how it goes. The season event ends. Drive wanted to say something. We don't get to find out. They're not going to get ice cream because of course they do. And then apparently it says, "Bye, this finale was not good." I wonder if this is new. Is this like new text? Is this text from the re-upload? I think it probably is. But alright, there we go. So the next thing, what the hell is it? The next thing is season 1.5. Alright, so season 1.5 is titled Battle for IDK. Battle for IDK is an 6 episode a season that happened 2 years ago. I'm not sure if these are re-uploads, not sure what they are. They all have some semblance of length to it, so I presume all the episodes function. So episode 1 of this in the middle season is titled "I Killed My Whole Team with Grubhub." Oh god. We're going from 2020 memes to 2021 memes. Ooh, evolution. Alright, here we go. Okay, that is Battle for IDK episode 1. It's something I probably don't gotta watch. However, I'm here, okay? Might as well, we'll get to it all, as they say. So we have here an interesting thing. We have here a couple of fellas, yet again, just like how pretty much every time in season 1, when after the break we ended up seeing a different style. This is again just looks completely different than how any of Battle for PS5 Season 1 did, and indeed it acts itself out quite differently as well. So, remember in episode 8 of Battle for PS5, when I was on about the friggin' unrehearsed, how that pacing felt slow because it was unrehearsed. Yeah, so that was one end of the spectrum, right? Here is the other. This is what happens when an object show feels too rehearsed, alright? Because here's the deal. you need to make something feel natural, which means that a conversation happens naturally. However, you need to have for natural to happen, you need to have a semblance of like time. Like you need to have a little bit of a stopgap within interactions. That way, somebody can have processed information taught back. Right? This feels like an over rehearsal because it just directly feels like everything is just directly coming in after another. Like, for example, like you want to hear how these interactions are. Like, look, I'll show you. So like, for example, hey tape, hey taper, I have a question. What? How come you don't have no tape personal? Mind telling me it's personal for a reason? I have another question. Fine. Like you see how I didn't have the script there, but like it's just that it's so direct. It's so direct. Or like, I'm gonna rob a door. You insane? Yes. Like you see how fast it acts itself out. So, like sometimes it'll do mod breaks, but not too much. But in general, look, it's one of those things where it should definitely slow itself down a little bit. This isn't the type of bad like, okay, here's the deal. It is possible to do this, okay? Unlike, I think, slow pace, which is kind of bad, I believe that doing this is, serviceable. You can survive, right? Like this isn't bad. It's fast. It loses itself a bit of possibilities, right? Because it always keeps itself at the same speed. However, it is functional, right? Which makes it better than the Battle for PS5 episodes. Because like in general, it manages to keep more interest, despite the fact that it does relatively random things in relatively random ways, at least it keeps itself humorous. It's going at a breakneck speed, and it's just doing what it's doing, right? But anyways, what ends up happening is we end up having our host be Pepsi logo, and they proceed to host a show featuring AAA battery, Argentina flag, a chisel, a cursed table image, a DVD case, a mail icon, a mouse pad, a Squidward, a tape roll, which doesn't have tape on it, and a TNT. They end up hosting the challenge. So we end up making the two teams of four. One team ends up being called the Fire Venissement, whatever the fuck that is. And then the other team ends up being called the Ocean Mounders, whatever that is. Then they end up having the challenge, what the hell is the challenge? Just stand on your pillow. So basically, don't drop down from the pillow, which means a couple of fellas end up having some attacks, like last second, like the DVD case got their DVD chopped off and scratched, so then they had to go grab it back. I like the idea that you just cherish the DVD case cherishes the DVD, because usually when there's a DVD case character, they don't actually tend to have their DVD. And as Mousepad eventually falls off, they are up for elimination because all of their team fell. It was TNT go kicked up our Argentina flag, and Taper fell. Right? So that team's up for Elam. Who gets out? Probably Mousepad, right? They were mean. Alright, episode 2 is titled Horrible Artist. Here we go. Okay, that is episode 3 of Battle for IDK. Yeah, I mean, like, the situation remains very similar, right? And I feel like I should, just for one last time, alright, just so that we kind of lock down this conversation. Yeah, you see, here's the thing. I can see the potential in this because I believe that this script, right, there's just the raw script that this show has, that this episode has, it's pretty funny. Right, like at the end of the day, some jokes might not hit. However, this kind of, ruder characters type vibe, right? And sort of less caring and more unhinged. It's fun, right, for some shows to do this, and I think that this show would overall have a fun time doing it. However, it's cursed by speed, right? Delivery is the issue here, because it's also, like having a speed not only makes conversations feel unnatural, it doesn't give me processing time, right? Like it doesn't give the viewer enough time to process things that get said, right? Because it's like, yo, it's doing a punchline, okay, but it does the punchline and then it's immediately on to the next section, right? Without any type of transition, break, anything, right? And it just ends up being problem, it does its job too fast, there's just not much to really say about it. It just does its work too fast. So yeah, there is also a little bit of a mic issue both here and in episode 1. Basically, it's one of those microphones where you can, like, it's very windy. You know, it feels like the microphone is close by, right? And you can hear it a lot even in this microphone, right? Where, like, this microphone, I like you'll hear a lot of the puzz and buzz, right? And like the breaths, if I take any for some reason, right? If I take any like bigger breaths, you'll be able to hear it. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I agree. It's one of the things, however, where like, okay, yeah. The reason why I don't try to minimize this is because because like, you know, I record for like multi-hour, so I just decide, so I have like a bare minimum pop filter, and then I just kind of walk around with the microphone because like, you know, it's comfortable, right? I need it to be comfortable, otherwise I know how to do it, right? But when doing voice acting work, just like stand back, you know, like stand back, get your wind not picked up, and then eventually you can, you know, you can audio edit its way onto the loudness if it's quiet. But like, yeah, you're a bit too close to the microphone. You're like this size, you know, like it just ends up being a problem. I'm very sorry about that. But like it ends up being it ends up being a little bit of an issue. But anyways, we end up having ourselves a challenge. Well, actually, first is the elimination, where the eliminated contestant ends up being none other than the freaking mousepad indeed, because they were mean indeed. So yeah, good, fair enough to them for doing that. They proceed to get turned into stone, as you do in Battle for PlayStation 5. And then we end up having the new fella Chisel, which apparently joined. They weren't here. I mean, they're in the intro, and it didn't show up, which I guess I didn't notice. My bad, gang. Yeah, I should have noticed, but no, I didn't actually spot it. But they're here, and they end up joining the team with more people, so they end up having a 6-4 split, I think, of the teams, right? No, they end up having like a 5-3 split of the teams, right? So, anyways, we end up having the image of a table, whatever you're called. You end up being like, yo, I can connect with the creator, which is really interesting, by the way. That's kind of an interesting design trait, right? No? Like, it's kind of like there was a Mona Lisa character. Mona Lisa could just talk to Da Vinci. Like, they just have that, like, communication portal. Like, isn't that interesting? Yo, that's kind of fire. That's kind of a cool character trait. There's, like, randomly, once or twice gets good character traits on them. Anyway, they get to make an image. However, they only have about 3 minutes to do it, and I don't care. So they try to recreate it, and it doesn't end up very good. And it doesn't end up very thematic, right? In the meantime, the other team ended up making a drawing of Pepsi. However, somebody was behind tape roll and said uwu for some reason. So then apparently when somebody says uwu, the immediate thing that you have to do is scribble that onto the paper as quickly as possible. So they ended up doing that. But it gets a 5 out of 10, and it's better than the rush drawing at the end. So the fellas are for Elam. Cursed table image fucked up, so theoretically cursed table image should get out, right? I mean, it's a relatively simple line of thinking. Should we run with it? Do we run with it? Yeah, let's run with it. Okay, let's go into episode 3, Life Too Soon. Okay, that is episode 3 of Battle for I Don't Know. So, I mean, of course, you're not gonna believe it. However, I'm being 100% for real with you when I say that I actually did spot AAA Battery in the intro this time, because I was thinking about it in episode 2 because of Chisel joined outside, and then I saw the intro and I saw AAA Battery, and I was like, wait, who is AAA Battery? Well, it turns out that we got to find out in this episode. But yeah, AAA Battery was in the intro. I remember saying their name in the first episode to talk about. I really was not paying attention. It's really interesting when intros do this. Like, it's almost weird when intros do this, because, like, did you think this through? It's like, it's kind of weird, because it's like, yo, really? Like, it feels like a really goofy way to leak stuff, but, like, I guess fair enough if you had this planned out. But it's interesting if you have this planned out, because, like, that means that, you know, the character that was in the intro that's there since episode 1 was supposed to join episode 3, right? But then by episode 3, we're already supposed to have 2 eliminations, which you didn't know about. So, like, that means that these episodes have been planned regardless of who's here. So the challenge doesn't seem to be, like, we don't seem to have necessarily challenges reliant on performance that much. It just kind of replaces who's here and who isn't here, which, it's interesting. Anyway, statue o'clock. So the eliminated contestant ends up being, relatively expectedly, the cursed picture image, whatever you call it, and you end up dipping away. However, then Chisel has to get back to work as this freaking lighter, I don't know, ends up calling them up, so they means that they leave the show. And alright then, that's cool. They end up turning into a statue, not Chisel, the other fella. They end up turning into a statue, and that means that that Pepsi has to go find another contestant. So they go to the city trying to look for a replacement. So the challenge is to find a suitable replacement for Chisel. We end up having the tactic 60% of people live in cities. Is this true? I feel like that is very wrong. I feel like that is incorrect. I don't know. But anyway, we could check for cities. I guess you could check for cities, especially considering, you are in one. So that would be pretty easy. Okay, I'm a bit confused. For some reason, half of Male's body just kind of dips. Like, I don't know why. Like, it just did, like, dynamite explodes or something, and then, like, half of Male's body's gone? I don't really know how that happens. But anyways, Argentina finds someone, finds a Fortnite V-Bucks gift card. They proceed to get bullied out of the way, because, like, what the fuck? Squidward finds a freaking SML character. Nope, can't do that. That's pretty bad. So, they're trying to do their best. So, yeah. Then we end up having PowerPoint. We get invited to join after they save Mail. Fellow Microsoft apps helping each other. But we end up having PowerPoint get asked to join. They end up doing the psych thing. This show does the psych thing a lot. You notice that this show does a lot of it being like, yes, I want this. To really? No. It does a lot of that, right? It is type of humor that, it is funny. I do like it. It's kind of the subversion of expectation. Like, oh, hey, the thing you thought was true is actually not true. Isn't that just so funny, right? However, of course, it has to work itself in moderation. I think it's mildly overdoing it, but hey, it's all right. Then it ends up the AAA battery, which has 3 eyes. Okay, triple eyes, which is fun. Ends up being like, okay, sure, and they proceed to choose the team go there, and having Argentina speak in Spanish. This cannot be native Spanish. I refuse to believe it. Is it? No way. Right? It's kind of difficult because maybe. Wait. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's not, but I never want to guess too much because it's kind of difficult. To gauge it. But either way, those fellas end up being up for elimination, and then we end up having Argentina. Oh yeah, yours very specifically called Argentina flag, right? So maybe would they get eliminated? Yeah, I mean they had a little crash out there near the end. So let's say that they get out this time. Argentina, it's time to go, and they got the Fortnite V-Bucks, which it's just not the way to go. So it's time for episode 4, which is titled Waterproof TV. What? Okay. Okay, so that is episode 4 of Battle for IDK. So, we have ourselves TNT yet again drop by. Apparently, TNT is a girl. This is something that this episode was thinking about. You can kind of tell. You can tell when the episode is written. Like what we're thinking, because it's like you can tell that there was a clear mind that's like, okay, we gotta lock down the genders of these characters in this episode because we feel like it. That's pretty much the extent of it. And indeed, it does do that by having, when somebody says guys, I know, but I'm not a guy, right? Something like that. Or like TNT going, well, I'm a girl, right? So something like that. It ends up doing that, which is, in a way, this is kind of just something that's a little bit hard to not happen, right? Because each day, you're thinking of something different, and that's why usually, probably, it's better for writing things to be multi-day projects, right? Because when you write things as a multi-day project, it'll end up that, each day you're thinking of something different at the end of the day, right? Each day you're there's some new thing on your mind, and there's a new idea, right? which makes writing an episode with multiple days a better idea, because you just refresh your mind after a little bit. Same thing goes with like that's why I think a lot of writers say that when you're writing a thing, whether it's a script, a book, or whatever, right? Like, you should be alright with closing it and then taking a look at it a bit later, right? Like taking a look at it in a couple of days, in a week, let time pass so you're not looking at the script, and then eventually come back to it. Why? Because it gives off that possibility, because it gives the possibility of refurbishing your mind with new ideas. That way you can look at it and you can add that onto it, so that way it feels like a more rich experience rather than just, this is the thing that was definitely written in one day, right? And I think you can you can tell that here pretty well. But anyways, we end up having ourselves the ideas of like trying to not activate challenges. We end up having the elimination where, by the way, on the team with elimination, whoever gets eliminated will technically get, it's more of a replacement, right? Because AAA battery will end up going there. But in the meanwhile, the elimination time ends up happening. And by the way, we get 2,000 votes, which is way more than the show had before. And I mean, it's difficult to say. Like, I'm not gonna say that it's lying, because I mean, I don't know what the view counts of the original episodes are, but for an episode 3 to have such a random bump of over 1,000 more, it is suspicious. It is suspicious just how many extra votes there are. Something happened. But the eliminated contestant ends up being Argentina flag, indeed, with 52% of the total votes, which is like 1,200, which is like a more than majority of the other of the other voting tallies total. So that's kind of crazy. But yeah, Argentina fly ends up dipping. I got that correct. Eliminations for this show have not been too difficult. They end up dipping away and being turned into stone, which is interesting, by the way, because like now that I think about it, it's like turning into a statue would theoretically remove your consciousness, right? Like, it's better this, like, I don't know, because, or would it freeze your consciousness? I feel like it would freeze your consciousness more than you would die, right? Because, like, the character doesn't leave to go to an elimination area. They turn into a statue, and they're just a statue, right? So theoretically, how does that elimination area even work, right? I don't know. That's like, if a character dies, like, oh, this is the afterlife area, or if they get teleported, oh, this is the the elimination area. But, like, if you turn into a statue, you're just a statue, right? But I guess it's difficult. But I don't know. Shows do this all the time. Like, again, even Nate the Snake does the same thing, where you end up going into another dimension based on statue. So maybe it's just a thing. Like, if you turn into a statue, you've, like, transcended or whatever, right? Like, that might just be a thing in media that I don't know about. So, anyways, we end up having ourselves the challenge. Where, by the way, I just like to point out that, like, this shot where Pesty and Squidward are talking, the DVD case and tape roller, I don't know what they're doing. They're doing something in the background. I don't know. I will admit that it looks awfully suspicious, but I'm not. We're not close enough to really know. But we proceeded to have the challenge, which is to climb on top of a very, very large TV. We end up having the idea that, let's do explosion. The TNT ends up being, exploding. You guys can get up. It starts raining, however, so AAA battery starts to explode. Not good. Meanwhile, the other team, Squidward, has suction cups, so they can climb on the side. Everybody else can climb onto them. However, it turns out to take a while because DVD case is just heavy, because, I don't know, they eat computers. Okay, fair enough. Then we proceed to have TNT have the idea of utilizing an umbrella, because they need an umbrella anyways to try to fly over. I will admit it's not animated very well, because, I mean, the way that this umbrella is animated would mean that, like, literally it is not protecting AAA battery at all, so they would just explode. And either way, they eventually, at the last second, try a leap, and then AAA battery does explode. So, Yeah, it's not looking good. Thankfully, we managed to get to a last-second hit on Squidward to make them fall down while the others get up. So Squidward has to climb back up by themselves. However, TNT manages to clutch up for their team by pulling out a magnet, which you had all this time, and they got AAA battery to catch onto it, meaning that they are officially safe. Yeah, again, not sure how AAA battery didn't explode. Not sure what it takes for it to explode. It just takes an amount of time. But yeah, this means that DVD case, Mail, and Squidward are for Elam. Who would I think would get eliminated? I mean, DVD case did technically do the problem by being heavy. However, I don't think that's really their fault. I would say that it would be Mail or Message or whatever you're called for that opening scene. Where they were kind of trying to dictate everything. So, well, yeah, we'll go with that. Okay, episode 5 is titled Squidward Game. Here we go. Okay, so that is episode 5 of a Battle for IDK. So, it seems to turn out that new knowledge, Pepsi has hosted a show before, which apparently is not good. I don't know what. Apparently that's bad. You cannot have hosted another show in the past. Apparently this is bad news. But they've showed a show called OTT back in 2001. All right, it's been the 20th anniversary of this series. They created a reality show, so that's interesting. Pepsi logo is still alive, and the others are also alive. Great, good stuff. Good stuff. Pepsi logo, a logo. Yes, correct. Thank you, Note. This is so true. Certain characters have had redesigns, by the way. They're relatively mild, like DVD case. DVD case is starting to look less and less like a DVD case. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's just a rectangle with DVD written on it. Like, what? A DVD case doesn't have a giant text saying DVD written on it. But either way, the team has started to beef whether it was Squidward's fault or was the Message's fault. But then they turn out to have the elimination time take place on the moon for some reason. And out of the 1,743 votes, you can definitely vote multiple times. I refuse to believe you can't. We end up having the eliminated contestant B-mail icon. So I got it correct. Let's go. I am a god gamer. And they end up dipping away, turning into stone, turning into metal or whatever. And then we end up getting ourselves back onto Earth. So the challenge was supposed to be, as Tape ended up going there, your Roblox account is called Tape the Simp 829. So, I mean, that account probably exists, right? I mean, non-zero chance. It has 15 friends. Okay. I wonder... Like, is this an account that actually got used? I wonder if we just went to games and tried to friend everybody, try to get a friend list. That would be really funny. But, anyways, we end up having yeah. Who else? I saw somebody else had a new asset. I think Tape has a mildly new asset. But, like, it's very similar at the end of the day. And so does Pepsi have a mildly renewed asset that just kind of tweaks the colors a little bit. So we end up having challenge B to race around the moon. However, we apparently don't have the power to race around the moon because we don't have teleportation powers. Yeah, we don't have the teleportation powers because we use them all for the sake of getting to the elimination area, right? So that's fair. Then we get to have what is it? The challenge is gets swapped off last second to play Squid Game, or well, Squidward Game, which Squidward is a big fan of. Survive in the Squidward games, and each one of the challenges you'll be safe. That's pretty good. First one is red light, green light. Fair enough. Battery, AAA battery gets immediately dead. The second person who dies is, if I'm not mistaken, freaking who else dies? Wait, nobody else dies, right? Hold on. Yeah, I don't think anybody else dies. Okay, yeah. Alright, I see. Or does TNT die? No, TNT doesn't die. TNT makes it. Everybody makes it, except for AAA battery. So, that's a big goof right there. In terms of the audio, I would say that this one is probably the worst one when it comes to the audio thing. Like, here's the deal. This is just what happens. Like, I don't... Okay. It feels like a headset that's too close to the mouth type mode, you know? Like, you know when you have a headset and you're trying to be like, oh, I need it to pick me up, and then you put it really close to the mouth. However, it just doesn't, that's just never a good idea. It's just not good. Like, you just, like, speak louder but a bit further, but put the mic further away, and it'll be much better, you know? Anyways, we end up having the second challenge, which is, of course, Dalgona, the cookie game. We end up having Tape Roller have their cookie break, and then they die. We also end up having TNT accidentally light themselves on fire, which doesn't work. Why did you... okay, sure. So that leaves DVD and Squidward to play the glass panel game. Realistically, neither of them would survive. However, somehow they do. I'm not exactly sure how. And Squidward manages to make it to the end first, but DVD at the last second pushes them before it can be officialized, which means the DVD case wins, and the other fellas are up for elimination, but the contestants will vote them. However, we can choose to save one of the contestants before they end up getting back. I will say, voting icons in this show have always been relatively solid. I mean, these ones, they are a little goofy. I don't know why there's this one, like, effect, light effect placed on all of them, like, which looks a little bit goofy, but I do like the AAA being, like, together with another AAA, because, oh yeah, you know, there's two batteries, you know, then they're going together. The TNT's in the lava. I remember the DVD case one and the other one. They were kind of like throwing the DVD. They were looking all swag. They were looking like Sonic in Sonic Adventure 2. You know Sonic Adventure 2, like leg up, hand down, throw. Yes, I'll give you the accurate description, Winona. And then we end up doing that. So, vote to save. I will say that the concept of a vote to save a contestant from a contestant vote is interesting, because we could, like, I don't think I've seen a higher tier show try to do that. However, it would be a relatively intriguing idea, because, like, we would get to understand we would be able to see the dynamics of a team, right? And of who they would possibly want to vote out. So that way we could directly impact against the decisions of the fellas if we want, right? Like, you don't gotta just vote for fan favorites like you would in a regular vote to save. You can, if you vote to save from a contestant vote, then that means that you get to properly factor in the contestants' voting ideas, right? The voting the voting concept that we're imagining that they would have, and then we would get to we would get to properly imagine it. We will get to properly affect it, and it might make for some variety in who would end up getting saved. Maybe, I don't know. Like, it's not a system that's been experimented. It's kind of it's difficult for me to say if it would work or not, but I'd be interested. Okay, episode 6, which is the last one. It is titled "Halfway to End." Are you sure about that? Okay, here we go. Okay, it's the next day. Yeah, no, I got nothing done yesterday. And that is episode 6, the finale of Battle for IDK. So, as you can tell by the fact that, first of all, this is on the Frozen Pepsi channel rather than the Frozen Pepsi 2 channel. You can tell by the time that has passed, and, like, the general quality bump that there is. So, like, as you can see, their styles, for certain characters yet again have gotten a mild amount of redesigns, some not as much, but some, like Mousepad, like a lot. It was really hard to tell what Mousepad was like. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of Mousepad. If for some reason it looks like a box, right? Like, you see his Mousepad design, right? It's just that light part. It makes it look like a box, right? It makes it look like that part on the right is like the side. So it's kind of hard to really gauge it as a mouse pad unless I got told about it. But, and also it's glowing. Why is it glowing? But, yeah, so time has passed, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And you can tell that also the microphone is so much higher quality. Now, that's a good microphone. That is actually a very solid microphone. I am a big fan of it. Which is nice. So basically, time has passed, and this is one of those situations where it's like where it's like you see the show there unfinished, and then you have that burden of like, okay, if I'm gonna integrate this into lore or whatever, I need to have this be done. However, like having it be done would still involve making like 3 more episodes, and I cannot bother to do that because that would not be a worthy, that would not give enough return on investment in terms of time to really be worth making, right? So what ends up being made is 1 episode that's just like just like speed runs, right? That just does the show like as a whole in one fell swoop, right? And it tries to do that, but I'm gonna have to be for real. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of some of this because, like, again, it's one of those things where it's like you can tell when you watch an episode like this. Like, when you watch an episode like this, you can immediately tell that, like, okay, we don't really want to do this. You know, like, if we're taking a show that was in a pause and then we're randomly speeding it up all the way to the end, it doesn't feel like it's an episode that wanted to exist, right? It feels like it's a thing out of necessity more than it's a thing out of want, right? That's the way to describe it. Like, that's the vibe that it gives off. Again, maybe not, right? Maybe it's not. Maybe we did want to finish this. However, in general, when it's like done like this, where it's like it clearly wouldn't have been like this if it was continued normally, then it would be kind of like different, right? Basically, what I'm trying to is what I'm getting at here. All right, and the thing about it, like, what would I recommend? Personally, I don't mind the idea of, like, it going all in 1 episode, right? If it has to do that, it has to do that. However, I would still make it, like, a significant length then, right? That way, it feels like an adjusted thing, right? But, like, getting 3 episodes done in the time of 1 episode, right, feels like you're speedrunning. If this episode did everything and it was like 16 minutes long, then it's like fair enough, right? If it was 16 to 20 minutes, and it's like, all right, sure, right? You wanted to get it done, in 1 episode, so let's make 1 epic episode and then we're good, right? That way we just gotta do 1. However, if we do 1 epic episode, but it's not epic, it's just like a regularly sized episode, but since it has to do 3 things ASAP, it just speeds through it, and it doesn't, it doesn't feel as good, right? But yeah, eventually what ends up happening is that AAA battery and the male icon, remember, got eaten by that weird thing. Pepsi can just revive them though, so don't worry about that. And then we end up having ourselves the challenges after the elimination, because we need to do the elimination as we did before. AAA battery got the most votes, so they're safe, and everybody else needs to vote somebody out. It ends up being 2 and 2 for either TNT or Tape Roll, depending on the alliances. However, Squidward, who isn't aligned to anybody, has to choose as the intermediary, as the swing voter. They end up choosing Tape Roll, so Tape Roll gets eliminated. They end up asking the icon, please win for me. Okay, I won't. Lamau, that's funny. And yeah, they end up teleporting themselves back into Evil Land, and then we end up also having some additional lore that we won't get to see in this episode, so I don't know when we'll get to see it, but apparently there's an evil Pepsi icon, who is hitting up some, who is it? Lead Pencil, which is, apparently injured. However, they're alliance, and they want to take down the show or whatever, so they're off doing that. Then we end up having a vending machine for some reason. And then we end up having the next challenge be a 1v1, a AAA battery and TNT, which by the way has eyelashes now because you know the classic. How do you tell a character's a girl? That's how. Then you proceed to have the battle. TNT manages to trick AAA battery into dunking a bucket of water on them. Then we end up having Squidward versus DVDK. DVDK somehow wins despite having ink on their face because they ended up fucking bumping into the vending machine. And then TNT just destroyed DVDKs because they still can't see. So then they win. One thing that I'm going to point out about this episode that I found very mysterious, okay? I know, what a word. I was a bit confused, okay, when I was watching this because I was like, yo, I don't know what it is about it. Maybe I just woke up like this, but like I got so distracted by the music. Like, it doesn't usually happen, but the music selection in this episode specifically, it really distracted me. Because, like, well, first of all, the vibes were changing constantly. It was lo-fi at the beginning, then it went super high-speed boss battle, Paper Mario music, and then it went to something else, right? They was doing that. Audio mixing might also fall into it, where, like, the music was definitely a little loud. It wasn't that loud. Like, it was definitely, like, vocals, yeah. Like, voice was definitely higher than the music. However, it wasn't by that much. It was kind of like a 60-40, right? So, like, it was there. It was mixed. However, maybe it wasn't, like, mixed, like, God's tier, right? And then, yeah. So, I don't know. I got distracted by that a lot, in this episode. Maybe just the music selection, it was very, like, kind of, like, locked in on, like, it was very, like, big tracks. I feel like they're supposed to be the center of attention when, they're not here. So it's kind of weird. Then we end up having the elimination for that battle between everybody except TNT. And we end up having TNT choose DVD case to get eliminated. So they get eliminated. Then we end up having the final challenge, which is a game of Monopoly that we don't even get to see. You're not going to show the whole thing. Yeah, you can show the final board or something. Put in some effort. Come on now. But TNT not only TNT is just a win. TNT just wins. TNT won both the last challenge and this challenge, so they officially are the winner of IDK. Good job, TNT. At the end of the day, in this episode, you showed dominance, so there's not much I can exactly say against you. So overall, this is some cool jazz. And that is Battle for IDK. What do I think of it as a season? It's alright. It's definitely it still has a bit of growing pains. However, it definitely strikes itself as better than Battle for PlayStation 5 Season 1. That's for sure. So that's an improvement. And I'm curious to see Season 2. So Season 2 of Battle for PlayStation 5 starts itself off with Episode 1, of course, released 4 years ago, 2022 series, titled Small Exterior, Big Interior. Here we go. Okay, so that is episode 1 of season 2 of A Battle for PlayStation 5. So what is the lore of this new season? So we have ourselves the contestants who are kind of chilling. We end up having yet again a little bit of a different style. How do I exactly say that this art style goes? It's a bit bigger in terms of the line, the sizes, and everything. I would say, so it ends up being a little bigger than how the IDK stuff was, but in general, we end up having ourselves the contestants who are apparently sad because RAA, which is the studio, by the way, that has, or the channel that quote unquote made this show, right? Read and Animations, right? Which is a channel that existed. I don't know if this channel, okay, because this channel right now is like Frozen Pepsi, so I don't know if this is like the channel where this originally was, or it wasn't, but either way, whatever the original channel was, they took down the videos of season 1, because indeed they did. They don't exist. Apparently over 20,000 people watched it. I wonder if that was in total or if that was on one episode. Because, the voting counts for some season 1 shenanigans, they were pretty large, so I wouldn't be against that, or the possibility of that being true. So, I don't know, because 20,000, I believe it would be more than any battle or any video on this channel currently has, right? So, it would be interesting. But anyways, we end up having ourselves the idea, to drive over to the Reanimations HQ. As they end up doing that, we also end up discovering in a not subtle at all way that Water and Dice are apparently dating, because Water just literally only talks about Dice. So fair enough, we know about that. No idea where Dice is, but like we now know this. So like how are you gonna how do you establish a relationship status? Just beat you over the head with it. Be like, hey, did you know that I talk about Dice? We end up finding our HQ, which is exactly the same as the Roblox HQ. There's a very interesting shot, by the way, of Cup and Water walking. Like, you can tell that it's kind of that it tried to like animate the background and then recorded footage of Roblox, which I mean it is a successful tactic. We have seen before that certain things animated like. That you have been able to use Minecraft as background or Roblox as background, and have that move a little bit organically, which is nice. So we have seen it. However, this shot looks a little awkward because there isn't really any set. Well, first of all, because it's. The movement of the camera itself is non-dynamic, right? Which means that because it looks like somebody's looking around, but it's not the characters, right? And of course, if the characters are looking at each other when climbing the stairs, this means that Cup is never looking forward when climbing the stairs, which means that how the fuck are you climbing the stairs, right? But it's a very interesting shot. I find the shot really interesting because it's very technical, and it leaves a lot to look at, But anyways, we end up having ourselves Pepsi get hit up there, and they end up going, okay, fine, I will let you I will re-upload the season, as long as you guys compete for a season, and the winner gets to re-upload it, because it's just such an honor pressing the upload button, pressing the button that uploads the video. Somebody needs to win the ability to do that. By the way, this did have captions at a moment in time. It did have captions for like the first minute of the video. Now it doesn't after, to be 100% honest, right? It's right in that Roblox scene that I talked about, right? Like after that moment, it doesn't have captions anymore. So somebody tried, but then they gave up very, very quickly. So fair enough. Making captions is difficult, but it is unfortunate because having partial captions remove the existence of auto captions, which means that I can't utilize them anymore. Do we have a couple of redesigns? I'm curious here. Let's take a quick look. I mean, not 100%. Like a couple fellas, I think, like Blueberry Juice is more distinguished from Water, which is very important, but that's good. I think that some fellas like Sheets is mildly reworked, because Sheets, we tried to make Sheets at a point in time quite a lot different than the regular Sheets logo. Now it's bad, just kind of being the Sheet logo. We end up having our intro. I actually like how this intro is formulated. It's not quite done right, but I think the possibility of having an intro where everybody's sort of clocking into the chair, right? Like everybody's sitting on the chair in the different pose, right? Would be really interesting, having each one of them do a unique pose with the intro. Would be possible, and I don't think I've seen an artist should do that for its intro, which I think would be relatively cool. But either way, they end up getting split into the 3 teams, which they apparently already did. They did very, very quickly. I don't know. The challenge is to build something with Lego. They end up kind of doing that. Team Cranberry loses for not doing that. I think one of them builds an Among Us set. And then the other ones build because Imposter does it. And then the other team, what the hell do? They build They build a regular set, and then it gets destroyed, but it's still there, right? Sorry. So I think that's what's going on. Then we have the elimination as the contestant vote, because, I don't know, we felt like it. Wait, was this the team that screwed up? I don't know. No, I think this was the team that, because what was the team that had their shit break? It was Water, and their team saved, so okay. But yeah, eventually after the contestants voted, they ended up eliminating Clyde, which ended up getting thrown down the pit and saying bye bye. Clyde is dead, so it's only fair. And that is the episode. In terms of audio, I think that music not distracting. However, a couple of voice actors, the one it was Drive and Trident and like the freaking watermelon gum, whatever it was called. Like those two fellas, so much quieter than everybody else. It needs to get balanced a little bit. But in terms of the audio quality, I think is okay. But it needs some better audio editing work. Okay, let's hope it does that in episode number 2, which is titled "Try to Not Get Injured." Go. Okay, that is episode 2 of season 2. So what do we end up seeing? We end up having Clyde immediately die after dropping down because it turns out, like the dropper, there's water at the bottom, but that is bad. So they end up getting revived on accident by Pepsi, right? Because Pepsi was just like, yo, let me check if anybody's dead. Yep, somebody is dead, but the person in the elimination is dead. Apparently, there's a epic spray that allows you to drop by in water if you're a technological thing. I don't know how, but we'll just go with that and plot convenience. And then we end up having them drop down. There's apparently a room down there that they could go into. And all that stuff is looking Gucci. So we end up having SBB4, by the way, or whatever they're called, the guy with the hat, ends up in the last episode revealing that they were actually impersonating Imposter, right? They were the imposter of Imposter, right? So what they however, they just reveal themselves and then make no effort to try to keep their disguise up or whatever. They're just now the guy, right? They're just like the guy. And nobody questions it either. Like, the host gives it a question, but as soon as they ignore it, they're like, oh, okay, I guess you're supposed to be here, right? So, all right. And having a new intro, it's worse than the other one, like, significantly, but oh well. We end up having a Dirty Bubble and the other fella, which, what are you called? Because I remember Dirty Bubble's a character. I forgot what the other one's called. Bubblegum? Bubblegum, right? So Bubblegum and Dirty Bubble are sad because they are split, they are divided. Well, at least Bubblegum is. I don't know if Dirty Bubble gives a shit. But, like, they then have the challenge get set up, as the challenge ends up being Plates of Fate. Yes, it does end up being Plates of Fate. We are heavy on the Roblox here. Heavy on the Roblox these days. Plates of Fate is a Roblox game where everybody stands on their own plate and random events happen to certain plates. You can jump from plate to plate. Of course, that's a little bit dangerous, and you can, affect them. However, things will happen to random plates, and you just have to be the last one standing. So, this challenge has 2 people from each team compete in it. Why? I don't fucking know. That is hilarious. Why? Why are, like, half the people in the show not allowed to do this challenge? There is nothing stopping them. It's Plate of Fate. Plate of Fate has like 25 people. What do you mean 2 from each team? And look. I know what that technical reason is. The reason is, we needed it to go by faster. What the hell you mean you needed it to go by faster? This is the shortest episode of the fucking season. This is the shortest episode of the season. You don't need to make it faster. 4 minutes. Come on. What in the world? Then you have 2 people from each team. Team Cranberry ends up losing again because she's immediately falls off and Coke bottle is fucking drunk. So that's all good. Then they end up just voting again, and they end up voting Instagram because and their quote unquote reasoning is that they barely help the team. What do you want them to do? They're not allowed to. And maybe if Instagram was there, maybe they could have done a thing, but they can't because they're not there. Like, what do you mean? Because, like, you can't have a challenge. Like, you just can't. Like, we people need to arrive into an agreement that we can't just go out here and make challenges where people just, like, come on in and have to skip out on the challenge. Because it doesn't work. It's not good. But either way, Instagram does end up getting eliminated. Alongside, Try the Watermelon Gun, which is another character that didn't have an opportunity to participate in the challenge, because it's not like they chose who went either. They literally didn't choose. It was a random selector. Now they're voting against the people who did. Like, what is the point? whatever. Instagram gets eliminated for both their fault, technically on the first challenge, but definitely not their fault on this challenge. But oh well, they tried their best. And it's improving. I believe Driver's voice was improved in this episode. Yeah, definitely, for sure. So it was... It's a bit more generalized. I didn't notice the volume complaints as much. So, yeah, we can head ourselves into the next episode now, because the next episode is titled Locked In. All right, let's lock in. Let's go. Okay, that is episode 3. Okay, here's the deal. I know that we want to look cool, right? But, like, we don't need to drop in a new studio logo and a new collaborator, co-creator studio logo and then a new intro every episode. And then after the intro, a title card. That's different every time. Like, like, you do not need... we don't need all this. But, anyways, we end up having ourselves the episode where we end up having Lemonade talk to SSB2 as they end up having a conversation. SSB2 is apparently having some vivid memories appear from time to time. There have been some crazy flashbacks that they've been in a really similar situation before. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about, but hey, I mean, at one time, like, you know, Pepsi hosted a show in 2001. Maybe we're talking about that. I don't know how old SSB2 is, but like the PlayStation 2 is pretty old. So, we end up having Pepsi apparently say no. Wait, there's something appeared on the screen. I don't even know what appeared on the screen. What is that? Yo, I don't know what that is. That's just that. What is that? That's just like a pin or something. So, okay, I guess that doesn't matter. But, we end up having ourselves a renewed intro. Now, this intro is good. This is a good intro. I actually like this intro a lot. I think that the transitioning gradient in the background is very nice. From character to character. A couple show up a bit more than usual, but that means that it's not necessarily all the same. So, I actually like it. Let's hope it stays, because so far an intro hasn't survived more than an episode. That's so chill. I know that making intros is kind of fun, right? But you gotta lock it down, otherwise you don't have a visual identity. And having a visual identity is very, 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 very important. So, yeah, we end up having ourselves next blood drop accidentally walking out of a window. Pepsi goes, "Oh, you can't walk out. That's a no-no," which ends up being a little bit contradictory, because hold on, do they not know they can walk out? Because Water just said, "Oh, we were gonna go to a restaurant." Wait, so you're allowed to do that, but you're not allowed, but blood drop's not allowed to leave the house? So I'm presuming they weren't allowed to go to the restaurant. Nobody knows. We were not given this information when they signed the contract. But okay, then they end up spawning in 2 new floors down there in the basement, and they proceed to have the basement over there. Then getting 15 minutes to chill at a restaurant if they want, if they want to eat food, get replenished or whatever. And then we have the challenge. Basically, there is a key somewhere around this cave, where that unlocks the door above. Simply, and then you have to get to the door, and it's above a rock wall. But yeah, they have earned McDonald's because apparently they did good for the ratings. I don't know. Lemonade's voice is interesting. It's like there twice. It's like doubled. It's like when you put the same audio twice, it just makes it a little bit more boosted in general. But we end up having the challenge again. Get keys. What do I think of this challenge? I mean, it's alright. It's okay as a challenge. It's not exactly a challenge it's not exactly the type of challenge that I'm looking at and I'm going, yo, this is the shit. Because at the end of the day, it is definitely a challenge where, you can just write whatever you want. But yeah. In terms of animations, here or ever, you end up having a couple of scenes that are interestingly animated. There's this one scene with, Dirty Bubble there that is animated relatively well. And there's a couple of, more out there scenes, like with some throws and stuff. But in general, it ends up being relatively... It's relatively standard for this type of animation. It feels kind of like... the movement does definitely give off that higher tier flip a clip vibe that ends up being there. I'm thinking like kind of like a Vile Tiles, kind of reminds me of stuff like that. So, yeah, we end up having Cup and Target Bag lose their teams, so they're struggling. However, then Coke Bottle ends up finding a key, so that team manages to be safe because 30 Bubble died. And then we end up having the other team be up for elimination. They are the team with like the most amount of people, I guess, but yeah, they ended up having Target and Cup lose themselves and therefore just not have anything that they could possibly do about it. Everybody ties with 1 vote because they decided to do the greatest tactic ever made. Vote ourselves since we don't know who to vote. What do you mean? What? What is this logic? What? Everybody did well, so the worst performer was me. What? I don't... That is really, really dumb. I'm not gonna admit. Because what? How does that even? What? That's like crazy, I mean, that is truly something. Because like in general, it's interesting just how performance-based these votings are, though, because a lot of the time, we end up having contestant votes, and they're all focused on, like, sort of the relationship aspect of it, the kind of, like, oh, I like you, I hate you, right? The relations, they're kind of all based on that, and very little about the challenge performance. However, this is kind of an interesting opposite version of it, where, like, the contestants only care about the challenge performance, and whether they like each other as contestants or as people, that doesn't matter. That, like, doesn't impact their opinions at all. So it means that if everybody does well in the challenge, regardless of whether you like everybody, if you've spoken to everybody, you have to be completely neutral on them because they did well, basically. It's kind of interesting. Also, I'm a bit confused. If everybody voted themselves, how is it that there's only 5 total votes? Wait, what? Hold on. No, wait. If everybody voted themselves, everybody would have 1 vote. So how is it that everybody has 1 vote except Lemonade? Because Lemonade would have had to have voted somebody, but if they didn't vote themselves, they would have needed to vote somebody else, which means somebody else would have had 2 votes, which means that this is just bullshit. I mean, like, either way, technically, unless like, this at the end is... Lemonade's vote, but like you would have needed to have seen the votes fully before like gauging it. I don't know, but oh well. Cup eventually ends up being the person that Lemonade chooses to eliminate. Haha, that rhymed. Because, as they said, they're not exactly getting along with their Cup brothers, so they decided to simply ditch one of them, and Cup is officially down in the dumps, alongside Clyde and Instagram, which is an interesting trio down there, I'm not gonna lie. And that is episode... number 3. So it's time to head ourselves into episode number 4. Episode number 4 is titled Cannibal. Alright, that's the song by Catchup. Let's go. Okay, that is episode 4 of a BFPS 5S2. So we have ourselves, alright, we need to have a chat, okay? We need to have a chat about Team Cranberry. Alright, because Team Cranberry, as the show is very clearly pointing out, has been one of the worst performing general teams that I have ever seen. Losing 3 of the 4 challenges so far. So what is going on? Well, I think that it just ends up boiling itself down to this team is a little bit of a sabotage, like they end up having this way of doing things where they need to do it a certain way and it ends up that they kind of fail. Like in this challenge, for example, they're like, oh, let's get whatever drink we can, but then it's like, no, it cannot be a Coke bottle, it has to be an orange juice, right? And then they waste time doing all that, right? And it ends up being a problem. Of course, they are. In this case, they are heavily handicapped by the fact they don't have a mechanism of actually getting there quickly, right? As the other team could use Ender Pearls, which, by the way, Drive shared out very generously. Only one person actually needs to go to the store to get a drink, right? You don't need that. You don't need a freaking group effort, to go buy one thing, right? But like in general, And then the other teams had a car, because that was like SSB2 just had a car, which means that these fellas end up not really having much. So like they are just kind of struggling on the front of not having too many technical abilities to their craft. However, yeah, they end up also struggling because they don't only have technical abilities, but they also have too much pride, I guess, in the way. It's kind of like how imagine like if Death Pact was with another team, they would be screwed because they wouldn't have the technical ability, but also no, like Death Pact only works because at least Death Pact is a theoretically very strong team, right? Without it, but then they get nerfed by their pride. But here they have pride, but at the same time are also really bad. So yeah, somehow Trident Bubblegum gets no votes, and the votes actually end up going to Sheet and Dirty Bubble, which I'm relatively surprised by considering the double lead them. I mean, I understand if they went like, oh, let's vote Dirty Bubble out, like, okay, that's fair. However, I'm a bit surprised that it ends up being a split, because that means that both Sheet and Dirty Bubble themselves actually ended up voting for each other, right? I mean, surely, yeah, they must have voted for each other. So like that doesn't make a lot of sense. I feel like they wouldn't have done that. But I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's a little mysterious for sure. I must admit. But but wait, we end up having Icy, which is that remember that co-host that hasn't shown up ever. Well, apparently they were just relaxing in the hotel. Fair enough. They end up dropping down alongside Dirty Bubble, and yeah, no, that team is not one of the greatest teams of all time. But overall, selling ourselves into episode 4, we end up having, as you can tell, a little bit of emphasis also at the beginning on kind of settling in to the dynamics, right? You'll notice that this show is very heavy on duo dynamics, right? Which means that, like, okay, Drive and Bubblegum, we have Lemonade and SSB2, we have Water and Dice, we have Target Bag and Blueberry Juice, right? Which, by the way, didn't you used to be kind of difficult? No, see that. Sorry, didn't you used to be like different? I thought you were different, but yeah. Even Shark and Bloodjob, I think, roughly make a little bit of a dynamic. But, like, in general, you can tell that the show kind of works itself down with duo dynamics, which is fair, right? Because what ends up happening, right, what these shows end up doing is they end up looking at it and going like, okay, I need to have characters develop, right? I need to have characters develop friends and have friends, right? And have people that they talk to, right? However, sometimes what this stuff doesn't necessarily understand is that, yeah, however, it starts to be a little bad if it's only with one person, right? Like, you can, like, realistically, you probably have more than one friend, right? Surely, you talk to more than one person, and in general, it ends up that, like, here it ends up being a little bit unrealistic because, oh, we're only ever talking to this one person, we're only ever doing this one person, and like it's all segregated into twos and twos even within a global team, so it ends up being a little bit like generally concerning, right? But yeah, we'll see how the actual like character arcs of this show, if they can be called that, end up developing heading into episode number 5, which is titled Fifth of the Station, whatever the hell that means. Let's go. Okay, that is episode 5 of season 2. By the way, shout out to that ending screen with the freaking text on it. No, with the voice actors on it, because, like, I'm sorry, like, it's always so funny when a show does this. Like, why are the credits for the characters are not in this episode listed? Why do we need to know voices SNES controller? SNES controllers in here! But, okay, we end up having ourselves an important moment. So apparently in the main HQ, which at this point I don't even know, Pepsi's just a freaking world travel. They're everywhere at the same time. But Monster is formulating a plan, and they've managed to revive all of the olden IDK contestants into like a cage. I don't even know. they're like caged up. Okay, they're like in those little tanks, you know. I don't remember. They have a name. I don't know what they're called. Capsules? Something like that. And Pepsi, they managed to get Pepsi to go away for the meantime. But yeah, they're doing something. And that's step one of the plan complete. Is getting them to be awake in the tank. Everything's on. Alright, fair enough. So that's happening. That's for future us to find out. What could they be doing? I don't really know. I mean, like, maybe... dude, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what monsters are up to. They're up to sinister things, alright? The contestants themselves from IDK think that, oh, yo, they're gonna murder us. But then, I mean, then they wouldn't be waiting so long. So, yeah, I don't really know. Then we end up having ourselves the challenge after Pepsi ends up grabbing some food. Spicy burgers. There are 3 super omega spicy burgers. Your team has to eat the full burger. If it does that, you are safe. You have no drinks, so you need to kind of make up. You're not allowed to drink food. No drinks. You get 1 drop of water, maybe. So they end up going over and taking a bite, drinking, doing what they can realistically, and then having a couple of little issues. Is that apparently, a couple of them end up having drinks on them. So Drive has the milk on them. Then we end up also apparently having bottles of water that SSB2 has. And of course, some contestants are drinks literally themselves, right? So you can drink Coca-Cola bottle, you can drink lemonade, for example, right? And that would help theoretically, right? So that is what is currently going on. However, it's apparently not allowed. You need to YOLO it, right? You need to get it down your system, and eventually some teams end up having different degrees of success. So what team ends up succeeding? I think it's the team with with Coke, right? Coca-Cola bottle manages to successfully just kind of eat it. They're on fire. I'd presume that makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, they are the Coca-Cola bottle, so they would be super hot, right? However, they should hopefully have the Coca-Cola to be able to kind of balance it out. So like theoretically, basically what I'm saying is that they would be a colder temperature on average, right? Which means that they can eat more before going to the same hot temperature that other contestants would. So I think Coca-Cola will be able to withstand it more than average, right? is what I'm trying to get at here. Okay. Then we end up also having the idea Bubblegum ends up going, Drive, we're all on fire. We cannot take another bite of this. I don't know how exactly that works. I mean, like, you are on fire, but you can... Well, first of all, you're on fire, and you're somehow okay. You're somehow having a chill conversation. There's going to be water running in the background. That's thematically correct for this challenge, actually. This is thematic. You see, I work overtime out here. I try to even make the aesthetics correct. But, yeah. But it's somehow okay. And then at the same time... It's also like you can't take another bite out of it if you're on fire. Why not? Right? Because if you think about it, that's actually different. Like you cannot withstand the burning. However, when you're on fire, then you are actually good. You are actually okay, right? This is how this tends to work, right? Because how this ends up working is that basically, right, when you eat something super spicy, you end up feeling it, right? And then immediately you're like, you eventually acclimatize to it, and then you are now better off, right? In the same way, like, for example, have you ever seen Hot Ones, right? In Hot Ones, you eat the bomb and everybody's dying, but then afterwards there's the spicier ones. However, despite the fact that there's the spicier ones, you are actually okay, because you have acclimatized eventually by the suffering of the bomb. So they should be able to eat the spicy burger. Absolutely. Because they're already on fire. The act of going on fire is the super painful part that might make you want to give up. However, the part after isn't. So that's what I'm trying to say. But eventually, Drive ends up cheating by drinking the milk, as Bubblegum tells him to. And Drive, as warned by Pepsi, does indeed get eliminated. That is... It's their fault. I mean, yeah, like, yes, Bubblegum told them to encourage the tactic. However, at the end of the day, Drive heard the rules, didn't respect them, and you should get out. There's not much I can discuss. You can blame Bubblegum for morale, but at the end of the day, they just said a thing. The guy did it. You don't have to listen to Bubblegum. It's not a rule. You have to listen to Pepsi. That's a rule. So we know about that. No idea what's going on in the outro. Bubblegum tries to sleep and remembers something, but okay. Episode 6 is titled Reduced Bitrate. Okay, bro, the titles are so random. Alright, here we go. Okay, that is episode 6 of the series, of the season 2. So, we have ourselves the fellas, which, well, first of all, we actually have a flashback scene. I don't know what. We have a flashback scene of 1992, February 6th. This is a very interestingly random date, but apparently somebody has been injured, and that is bad, and that is also important. We don't know who that is, to be 100% honest. Is this from Bubblegum's memory? No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe? I'm not, no, I don't know. I'm not being 100% for real. I don't know what's going on there. But, Bubblegum is thinking and is dreaming, but either way, we end up having Pepsi call up. Lemonade says Bubblegum, dumb excuse, turns them into a mug, which you can do apparently. I don't know. I'm just saying I kind of like the idea of Pepsi having limited power. I was kind of a fan. I was kind of a fan of that. A lot. Like, I didn't mind. Like, I thought that was fun. That idea that they brought up in IDK, that was kind of interesting. But either way, we end up having this is why Diamond Book's better. What is this list? This is like top hosts, worst to best. Oh, wait. Wait a minute. Oh no, worst to best. Wait, hold on. Does that mean worst to best? No, that would make Diamond Book the number 1 worst, right? Wait, right? Yeah. So that means that thumbnail is the best because it's worst to best. I don't think it was supposed to do that, but okay. Anyways, we end up having the intro and then the chant. By the way, I'm sorry. These title cards are a bad idea. You can't have the title cards because they're gonna have the title, and that means that you have no freedom to make the title, change the title based on YouTube or whatever, right? It looks like, okay, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, right? But it just looks a little dumb when it says "not this meme again" on the title card, and here it says "reduced bitrate" because that means that you changed it and you didn't know what you're doing, right? Like, it's kind of one of those things. It's not good. It's not. Title cards are only for the very decided episodes, But either way, we end up having the challenge, which is 2 people from each team will be teleported into Super Mario Bros. Finish the level, any one of you, and you will be safe. So they proceed to do that. Of course, this challenge is immediately, right off the get-go, has the same massive problem of contestants who are not present, right? They have to sit out the challenge for no particular reason, right? Like, at the end of the day, having 2 people per team compared to having the other 2 also try is not like you can do that, like there's nothing in the world that is saying that you can't do that, right? So that's like it's just not good, it just doesn't show screen time. I understand that it's a contestant vote, right? And when you're doing a contestant vote, you don't need to share screen time as evenly because it doesn't matter, right? It's not the viewers who are deciding. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but like, I'm still watching a series. I want to see the characters still get screen time. This doesn't make it less important, But either way, we end up having the people TP'd on each team. So it was the Mug and SSB on Team Grape. Then it was Coke Bottle and the Gum, the Watermelon Trident, whatever, in the team freaking the one that's bad. And then the other fellas are the Shark alongside the who was it? Hold on. It was Shark and water, right? Yeah, it was shark and water, but the water asset is a little bit off. But anyways, they end up going over. We end up having the Coke bottle just absolutely kind of solo, just gaming, taking in, using a pipe, using a star, taking all full advantage of 1-1. And then we end up having the mug get to the finish. However, SSB2 isn't there, so they decide to sit there and wait for SSB2. Now, why the fuck did you do that? Apparently, look, I guess there wasn't a miscommunication, because Shark said that only one person needed to finish. Then Shark hit the finish pole, and then they were safe. So that means that, like, when Mug could have just gone over and finished it. By the way, they gained the legs only to lose them in the next shot. By the way, I don't know what was the point of the scene of them gaining legs when they just are not seen with them ever since. Like, what? Okay. But yeah, and I mean, with this newfound knowledge that you could have gone to the flagpole and been safe without SSB2, is massive development, and with that, I absolutely believe it's Lemonade's fault. I mean, it's their fault. They should have at least, they could have gone to the flagpole and from there, right, have waited after, but like finish before. Don't just wait at the staircase. Come on. But either way, they end up choosing who to vote out, and they end up indeed voting out Lemonade, as, like, Lemonade tried to vote Target back, but there wasn't really too much of a reasoning, so they get yeeted down there as a mug, they die, they get respawned, all that stuff's happening, and yeah, they are biting the dust one by one. In the final scene of the episode, we end up having, Monster's next plan, which is the next stages, which is number 2, eat a burger, and then number 3, kidnap SNES controller, Indian flag, and SpongeBob. Why? I don't know. To be 100% honest, however, they do proceed to do that, and then I don't know what's gonna happen. You gotta find out. We gotta keep the train moving into episode 7, which is titled Dash for the Cash. Ooh, let's go. Okay, that is episode 7 of Battle for PS5, Season 2. So we have ourselves a couple of things, all of those, those classic, the intro and title cards and studio cards, yeah, those have been updated yet again, because we felt like it. I don't know why. The intro only had a very, very mild update. The only reason why I noticed that the intro had an update is because it ends on a different color. It ends on, like, I don't know why water gets gradiented a little bit, so it ends on like a tinge of green, which is kind of weird, but I don't know. Okay, then we proceed to get figure out where the trio that got kidnapped last episode went. They apparently went into IRL, and Monster just decided to lock them in the closet. So, alright then. This has to go down in history as one of the most nothing burger plans I have ever seen. This might be the most nothing burger villain of all time. So this guy, no, I don't know, because, like, I think he's the bad guy, quote unquote. He's kidnapping people, doing all that bullshit, but, like, he's so nothing. I don't care, because it's like, he's just kidnapped the person to do, like, he's kidnapped all the people, put them in the basement, done nothing. Right, we're just like, okay, stay here. Then he went out, he ate a burger, and then he proceeded to go over, kidnap some more people, bring them to an entire different dimension known as IRL, right? The one that appeared that one time in season 1, and then they kidnapped those people and locked them away there, and that's it. They're not doing anything. Like, and this is not exactly the greatest plan of all time. Well, first of all, we saw in the post-credit scene that the actual fellas, right, down there were freed from their, like, confinement box, right, confinement liquid or whatever, so they can walk around. But not only can they walk around, I don't know how the hell they haven't been caught. I mean, surely does Pepsi never visit the basement? It's like, what is the idea? I don't know what the grandiose idea here on Mr. Monster is. If you're trying to be a villain, you need to show a little bit more power. Convey something. Show me something to work with, bro. Like, okay. But, anyways, we proceed to have, Dude, it is genuinely incredible how little I actually understand why these title cards exist. Like, I feel like these title cards, like, here's the deal. Shows nowadays sometimes do title cards, like BFDI episodes lately have done title cards. But it's one of those things where it's like, you want to integrate it as well, right? It's kind of one of those things, like, you make it look cool. But, like, the title cards for this episode, it's had the music randomly cut out and everything. And it's right after the intro every time. And it just feels like a random addition to the intro. I don't know. I'm not... I don't get it. But it'll be the last time I talk about it because you're understanding it. We end up having the fellas go over into the next challenge because the lights are out. Yes, the lights are out because we cannot pay the electricity bill. It turns out, so that means that because we only have $172 total on the account. So basically we're running out of money. Which is interesting considering like literally like 3 episodes ago. No, not 3. What episode? No, like. Yeah, like 4 episodes ago, we were apparently got a massive budget increase because everybody was doing so well that we managed to even build a McDonald's in the basement. But now we only have $172 in the bank account. We burned that budget fast. I don't know. That McDonald's must have cost a lot of money. That's all I'm saying. So. Alright, then, so the next challenge, of course, is to make money. No, it's to rob a bank. Yes, you're supposed to rob a bank. The team that robs the bank will win, and the 2 teams that rob a bank will win. Whatever that means. So they decide to get over to the city, as they do. They get a car for winning the challenge, team of Coca-Cola, Team Cranberry, or whatever. And then the other team also gets a smaller car. So, that's what they do. Then they get a speeding ticket, but hey, they can pay the speeding ticket. It's an investment, right? You're getting the ticket there to be able to rob a bank and then win the challenge and also get a lot of money. So that's fair. Then we eventually get ourselves a little bit of a flashback. What a flashback with TNT, because TNT is here, in the elimination area alongside the fellas that are dropping down. So we get to hear what TNT story was. So they were chilling with AAA battery. Then the monster came into our island and destroyed it. AAA went back to his universe. What? wait. That universe? You weren't from a universe. You're from the city. Wait, what? No. You were not from a universe. I don't know. I don't know where AAA. Oh, maybe they were, because they are. Is the idea that, they're from a different universe, and you can tell, because, like, they have weird eyes, they have three eyes, and that's like, alien, ooh. That might be what we're doing. I don't know. But either way, TNT misses the people, because they ended up dipping. And then they go, oh, hey, Pepsi, we know that guy. Yeah, indeed we do. So we end up having ourselves the challenge. However, the problem ends up happening that Cranberry Juice, with Cranberry Team, Cranberry Juice is a character, but we'll talk about that in a second. We end up having the Trident Watermelon get arrested because they stole what did they do? They stole like they stole donuts, and the policemen have caught him, which means that they get disqualified, and that makes Coca-Cola the only person left on their team. So since nobody accepts them onto their team, that means that nobody else is left, right? So the other teams proceed to conduct a heist together, which, by the way, I would point out, all of this uses Brookhaven as background. We're still very much so in Roblox, but we proceed to have Coca-Cola lose a challenge by themselves, which means that they're forced to get eliminated. A bit unfortunate, for sure. I mean, obviously, I think that, he should have pleaded. I think that Coca-Cola could make a pretty righteous argument for, he was here at the start of the challenge, so I should be able to vote him out, and that way I can vote out the Trident, and I got to stay in, because, it was part of the team, and he didn't quit, and nothing happened, so, he only got arrested, but that's okay. You can do that, right? Then I should be able to vote him out instead. All right. But don't eliminate me. Like, I feel like that plead might have had a chance of working, but Coca-Cola didn't even attempt it, right? So that's kind of why it's a bit difficult to really know. But anyways, they drop all the way down. We end up having the ice cream cone fella, the co-host that hasn't done anything, get called out for not doing anything, and they're officially fired. However, we get to vote for a new co-host, Barbados flag, obsidian, cranberry juice, the Mr. Krabs, the Trident Bubblegum, okay, Nick Kato Avocado, and the Taco, and also WTF. So who should join? I mean, I don't know. By the way, why are they shown in one order and then the voting numbers are in a completely different order? I don't know. But who would join? I have no idea. Do I go with the rule of first person? Yeah, let's say Barbados. No, no. I'm not gonna go Barbados. I'm saying, I feel like this show would be a meme. I feel like this show will meme it up. So I say Mr. Krabs. Let's say Mr. Krabs join. Alright, so let's go with that. And then let's go into episode 8, which is titled, What a Boat Trip. Alright, go. Okay, that is episode 8 of Battle for PS5 Season 2. So, characters, yet again, a couple of them have had themselves a little bit of a redesign, because we cannot go more than 2 episodes without tweaking these. We're just addicted to tweaking assets around here. This time, it just kind of tries to settle in a more consistent lighting structure for them. You can kind of tell in the way that Dry kind of looks, and in the way that, especially Sheets looks. I think Sheets is a good example. You see, it's just supposed to be lit more like the rest of them, rather than being a plain color, which I think is interesting, because we proceeded to make Lemonade an extremely plain color for some reason. What? I mean, fair enough, but, yeah, so those eliminated contestants, they've just been chilling. They've been debating about, the unfair or fair eliminations, while TNT apparently just drinks, like, tons of soda, like, all of the time. That does sound like a TNT thing to do. So, it has been a while, and Pepsi's not here. It's 10 in the morning, right? Because remember, in lore, the challenges are every day. So then we proceed to not know what's actually going on. Apparently, the window was left open, so that's a little bit mysterious, right? Because it was not supposed to be left open. So the idea is that he's probably kidnapped. We end up yet again having a couple of little redesigns. I think Target Bag is the one with the main one. This redesign has to go down in history as one of the most what the fuck. I'm sorry, what? Wait, like, have you seen a bag? What a bag is clear? What do you mean? Not saying those don't exist, but like, when you go to the groceries, you don't got the clear bag. What do you mean? What? Is this a thing? No, I'm Googling this. Hold on. Is Target clear bag? That exists. I mean, there's like handbag, but there's not like like they're like white bags. Yes. Like, what do you mean? Clear? Like, it's a clear bag. Like, what the hell? That's not. That is rough. That is a rough redesign. And we're still doing the thing of mirroring when the characters that have text on them, right? It's kind of like how DVD ended up looking like BVB or whatever the hell. the other in the other episode, like in the post credits, like, and then this is like but either way, we end up having SSB2 host the co-hosting ceremony. That way we can have a co-host that can host the challenge, because Pepsi's currently gone. We proceed to have the joinee, which is Taco, apparently. This Taco, with an immense amount of lettuce, ends up joining with 9 votes compared to 5 for Mr. Krabs, which got in second place. I think it's a pretty reasonable prediction if I got one of the top 2. So I respect it, personally. Of course, the new assets also mean that the intro has itself a little bit of a rework as well. And the logo, the main logo as well has it. By the way, complete, this will be the most useless complaint that I'll ever give. But, like, you know what annoys me? Ever since this logo has had tweaks and everything. But there's always this one bitch-ass line above the letter O in 4. There's like this little white line that nobody will get rid of. And like, it is there. It is not supposed to be there. And I don't like it. But it is there. And it does not go away. Which is like, bruh. But, anyways, the challenge is to get to the island with Pepsi on it, because Pepsi is kidnapped there, and Taco has a tracker, because they have a co-host tracker, where you can get to figure out where Pepsi is. Now, that's interesting, because Pepsi got kidnapped by who, I don't know, but, they go, I mean, it might be evil monster guy, maybe, I mean, who knows, but, either way, we end up, having the, by the way, maybe a little bit of a plot continuity. How the hell did Pepsi give Taco a co-host tracker if Taco was not the co-host before Pepsi joined? So like, it's not like Pepsi could have been like, oh, good job, here's a tracker for me. So unless they gave everybody a tracker before and then like settled it down here, then maybe. But other than that, I wouldn't be able to understand. Right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That's a little suspicious, I must admit. But either way, we end up having Monster being like, do the this is the most useless villain I've seen in history. They go over to They go over to Pepsi and go like, hello, you didn't know that I was the bad guy all along. Hoo. And they even showed them, like, I kidnap your contestants. And then they just leave. That's it. They say adios. What was the point of this interaction? Somebody has to tell me. Somebody has to tell me the point of this interaction. No. Like, this is why, when you're writing something, right, you need to try to understand, you need to try to answer the question, what is a character trying to achieve? Like, I don't know what Monster Energy is trying to achieve by having this interaction. Because they've just kept the guys in there. Again, we still don't know what they're trying to achieve. They're just trying to be evil. This is like if you go a random guy and was like, you must now be a villain. And then this has to be like, what? And then that's it. That was the instruction. It's like when a tasking against be evil. Like, you just have to kind of guess. Like, what is... I don't know. This guy has done nothing that makes sense. He's done 7 pointless things. And he's just revealed his identity now. He's revealed that people are kidnapped. He's revealed his identity. What was the point? What were you trying to achieve with that? Whatever, bro. Whatever. They proceed to go over. We end up having, of course, merge, by the way, because, it's merge. We end up having, Shark could not help out Bloodjob because Bloodjob apparently never helped out the team. So Shark proceeds to swim on over themselves without any assistance. Face Mask goes like, hey, I can fly if somebody latches onto me. So maybe I can ask for somebody. So they go ask Taco for any eliminated contestant. They end up fetching out Coca-Cola. Then we end up having Vamba help out. But hey, fair enough. I feel like Pepsi wouldn't have done it, but like, Taco, I think is relatively open to the idea, so that's fair enough. Shark gets there because that makes sense. And then we have Target back throwing a bomb to sabotage the duo of Dice and Water. Rip. And then we end up having Bubblegum and need to get a move on. Thankfully, they find a catapult that has just been sitting there the entire time and nobody noticed. And they manage to launch themselves. Not quite the full weight, but they end up eventually making it. So, yeah. For some reason, there is this global agreement, okay, that Bubblegum is the biggest threat. Why? Bubblegum is the biggest threat, apparently, according to the fellas. Because, like, Target Bag, they said that they're second biggest threat behind Bubblegum. I don't know why. Because, like, Bubblegum has just been no, is it because Bubblegum should theoretically be one of the least serious because Bubblegum's off wailing in a bathroom crying the entire time. Like they barely do challenges. Like in this challenge, yeah, okay, they started late and still managed to win, but that's because they found a catapult. That wasn't smart. Like, oh my gosh, it was so smart to find a catapult in that moment. It's like, bro, what? It's just like I don't know what I'm seeing here. I don't know if I'm seeing the smartness because they were like, oh yeah, but they made drive manipulate or whatever. Well, it's like, okay, yeah. No, also, because they were just like, hey, Bubblegum, you should cheat in secret. And Drive went like, okay. And I said, well, I mean, this is not elite tier manipulation tactics. You just said, yo, you should do a thing. It is not a legal requirement. This does not make you the biggest threat in the game. Well, if you want to know who do I actually think is the biggest threat in the game, I don't know. I feel like Shark kind of nonchalantly does very well. Been a character that hasn't had too much to them, but they've kind of just managed to come in with a strong physical ability, while also relatively strong mental game, and managed to do pretty well. So probably say that Shark might be one of the biggest threats. It's somebody that's just kind of really coasting along. Like, you don't really see Shark in trouble in this series, and I think that speaks for itself, for now, of course. So then they end up voting Blood Drop out, they decided, because Blood Drop has apparently not been very useful, and Blood Drop eventually ends up dipping away. Goodbye, Blood Drop. A bit unfortunate, but sometimes it goes the way that it goes. Blood Drop truly didn't do that many things, but either way, we end up having some fellas. Oh yeah, the final scene where Trident and jail has been like, come with me. Who are you? Doesn't matter. Come with me. And then they proceed to fucking kidnap them. And it's like, I mean, yeah, you really set yourself up for that one. You think when somebody asks, who are you? And they say, that's not important. That, like, moment of notice. Every time somebody says, that's not important to the question, who are you? At that moment, then it becomes important. Right? If they say it's not important, that means it's important. Okay? Because if it's actually not important, then they would be able to say it. Just saying. So, yeah, I mean, the guy all majorly bamboozled. I'm gonna have to admit. But either way, time to head into episode 9, the first one over 10 minutes. It is titled Deduction. Okay, let's go. Okay, that is Battle for PlayStation 5 Episode 9 of the second season, titled Deduction. So, what do we have here? We have ourselves, first of all, a chase going on for the Trident watermelon gum thing, because the FLA policeman, the flash file, ends up noticing that they have escaped, quote unquote, although escaped is a bit of a tough word to say. Somebody just walked in, was like, yo, come out, and then they walked out. There was not the amount of protective layers between the jail and leaving was like 0. So I don't really blame him for doing that. It feels like it was a relatively easy thing for the guy to do. But okay, either way, we end up having ourselves a couple of exposition things that are happening in this episode. We have a couple of little lore drip feeds here and there. But we end up having, who the fuck is SSB1? So apparently SSB1 was a fella who existed, and they died as they were created. As SSB2 was being created, SSB1 died, presumably because of, like, prototyping, I'd presume, right? I was like, oh, SSB2 is the better variant, because SSB1, I mean, I'm looking at the asset from there, it looks kind of like a rough, like, version of it, so, that would make SSB1 sort of the failed prototype version. But yeah, and Dice brings up a good point. Can they get revived? Who knows? They proceed to go ask Pepsi about it, and they end up saying that they can only recover the 18 people, which is interesting, by the way, because that means that they technically can't revive somebody else then. So if Taco died, for example, could they not revive Taco? It's kind of interesting. But it does also bring up, again, what I consider to be, my opinion, a very interesting thing. The very interesting question of, hey, what about, like, how does recovery work? Can you recover anybody that you can think of? Can you recover only people that you have in your memory? Like, how does that work? I don't know, but the fact that the no show has tried to make a proper function of, like, proper answers to this is interesting. Like, I think he does, right, because of the app or whatever. But, like, that's just tied into the whole different story. But either way, we end up having the try to being in jail. They're not in jail, but oh well. The challenge ends up being trivia. Everybody's complaining that the challenges are bad because, remember, in object shows, nothing is ever good. You'll notice, and the contestants never say the challenges are good. The contestants will never tell you the teams are good. Never will tell you the team names are good. Never will tell nothing. Nothing is good for object show contestants. I'm telling you, it's all negative. It's all thumbs down emojis around here. Around these parts, everybody hates everybody. Right, so we end up having the house, also the random lore. The house costs $400,000, which, I mean, that's a pricey number. However, I will admit that you can just add floors to this house at any moment, right? So, like, the fact that you can just have infinite floorage, I think, makes it worth it. So, at least for Pepsi, as an investment, considering they have host powers that allows them to do interesting things. So, yeah. And they proceed to start off hosting until eventually what ends up happening is everybody climbs out. It turns out the contestants managed to climb out of the hole. How did they do that? The answer is, I don't fucking know. The hole was deep as fuck. They were falling for like minutes down there, and you're telling me that like 6 people managed to stack up and get there. I've got no idea how that is possible at all. But like, sure, whatever, we'll go with it. And then it turns out that at the end of the day, we're going like, yo, Pepsi, you cannot live anymore. And then the Coke bottle just ends up freaking launching a straw through them and murdering Pepsi. Pepsi is fucking dead, boys. They are no longer here. Yeah, that is a big deal. Yeah, Pepsi, I mean, like, yo, look, I don't know what this villain arc is doing, like, monster / now we eventually discover who it is, like, the other Pepsi, right, it ends up coming in with a whole, I'm gonna do this evil arc so that I can take over the show, and meanwhile, all it takes is Coke bottle and 1 straw, and a guy is dead. This was, like, we did not need this plan at all, bro. Like, it's so goofy, especially considering that, like, bro, Taco also gets launched out. They could always just probably walk back in, but they don't decide to, so that's, okay. But anyways, we eventually end up deciding that the challenge, of course, is trivia, so they proceed to still roll along with the challenge as intended. We end up having some questions, and then, some other questions. For example, what if the flag has the same colors as Pepsi? The answer that we were probably looking for was the Netherlands. However, somebody answers Czech Republic, which is correct. Well, technically, you'd have to say Czechia, but, then the country where were French fries invented, Belgium, that's true. Then we end up having some other, in the second episode of the original PS5, I don't know, something happened. Drive, oh yeah, by the way, sorry, funny scene that I just remembered. So, you know how I say that Drive's voice is lowered again? There was like one episode where Drive's voice was well mixed, and then it went back to it not being well mixed, right? Remember that? So, like, apparently, it turns out, right, that, actually, it is quieter. So like when we have the fucking scene where they use a megaphone, it's really funny because like Drive using a megaphone just means that Drive's voice is now the same volume as a regular person talking, like rather than it being louder at all, which I think is quite funny. But yeah, they ask a couple of questions, and the challenge overall, it's okay. Dice and Face Mask eventually end up winning by answering the last questions, including what is my favorite game, which is Pop the Bubblegum. Bubblegum is upset because they thought they settled their differences. You even saw Bubblegum hug Drive at the start, but no, it was not. it was not the way to be. Unfortunately, the mend was not drifted or whatever. Dice obviously chooses water to be safe, and then Face Mask decides to choose Bubblegum since nobody likes Bubblegum, so they end up choosing Bubblegum. The eliminated contestant will get to vote this time, however, for the eliminated contestant. So, yeah, it ends up being a relative toss-up between the people who actually vote, because a couple don't, like Coca-Cola and, of course, the Trident, because they're not here. It ends up being a toss-up between the Blueberry Juice, which a lot of people kind of don't know what's up with them, right? They're kind of a little bit mysterious, right? So if they care about the other people, they don't, or they vote Shark, because Shark was kind of mean, kind of doing the whole thing, right? And it comes down to Blood Drop, who was historically big friends with Shark. However, Shark, eventually was like, well, you weren't doing anything, so I'm going to be on my own. Or then Blood Drop debates, yeah, I mean, that was pretty mean to me. However, at the same time, it's also like he was standing up for himself and needed to win now that it was the merge. And I can't be too mad because they also do relatively, like, low morale thing. Right, like relatively bad things in terms of morale, so I can't really judge it too harshly. So Blueberry Juice is gone, and Shark lives another day. Goodbye to the Blueberry Juice. Ends up everybody dropping in the hole alongside Not Drive though, which ends up deciding to apparently I guess just be the host now. But okay, then we end up having Trident get sent over into the IRL with the other fellas, and then Monster decides, hello, I am actually evil Pepsi. Now, again, we don't really know who evil Pepsi even is. However, like, we roughly, those people might, I don't know, there's a non-zero chance. Like, for a bunch of them, it's like, for Trident, does he care? I don't, like, I'm back from where? Like, I don't know. But either way, I mean, the fact that was secretly cosplaying as Monster does not make the absolute slowness of this operation and lack of direction and lack of purpose any less pathetic. This is still the most pathetic villain arc I think I've ever seen. This guy has done this guy has kidnapped some people for no reason, to do nothing. For nothing, right? Like, there's nothing he's done. And, like, I don't know what the idea was. Again, if the idea was to take over the show, apparently all it takes is a straw and Pepsi is dead. It didn't take that much. Right? It's not one of those things. Like, I don't know. This guy is taking the long game, but he's taking the long game all the way to friggin', he's taking the world trip. He's like walking across the earth or whatever. Like, bro. But, either way, we end up getting more flashbacks about the other show that Bubblegum theoretically competed in. They competed in a finale against a book, and the book fella ended up winning the race at the end of it and getting an Ultra Sunlight Diamond, which is very good and very important. However, it activated a curse. So that's what we get to see. I mean, obviously, my immediate idea is this a Diamond Book backstory? Because remember, Diamond Book was a character. So that would make sense, right? That book turned into the Diamond Book after sort of maybe like being one with the diamond. Something like that, right? It would be interesting. I don't know, but it would be something. Either way, we gotta find out, because it is time to head ourselves into the next episode, because the next episode of Battle for PlayStation 5 is episode 10. We're getting to the end of season 2. 2 more episodes to go. Episode 10 is titled Wanted Detonator. Here we go. Okay, that is episode 10 of the second season. So, we have ourselves, friggin' Drive talking about how I think that they're a bad person and stuff because they got kicked off because they did the challenge and because of the Bubblegum, right? And Dice goes like, yo, you should get over it, they didn't mean to get you out, they're trying to be friendly, but they're still mad at that, and everybody still remains pretty dead, because remember, if you die, there's no Pepsi to recover you anymore. So that's not good. That's not bueno. So they proceed to make that the challenge, which proceeds to be, it's very, very, very clearly the challenge is to make a recovery center. By the way, I'm just telling you, the past 3 episodes, the title cards have gotten way lazier. What's the point? This is not. Look, I understand. This does not matter, but it is specific. I have a personal vendetta against specifically these title cards. They don't. What is the point of this? You just dragged in random effect of circles and then wrote the text. It took you 5 seconds. Then why are you making it if you only want to spend 5 seconds on it? But okay. Then we end up having the fellas down there finally find a way to escape because Squidward using a hammer that he won, right, as a prize in one of the Battle for IDK episodes. Go over until Rectangle shows up. They were here the whole time. I don't know where they came from, but they show up and go like, yo, TNT, I know that guy. Because they do. I don't know how they do. I mean, I saw them in one of the flashbacks, right? I mean, they were like in one of the flashbacks from Bubblegum, like a couple days ago. I'm using the show's time structure a couple of episodes ago. Anyways, eventually, evil Pepsi drops by and notices that they've escaped, and the task officially is to get them. While a fake Pepsi, or whatever, evil Pepsi, I don't know what you're called. I'm just calling you evil Pepsi, ends up doing the thing. The challenge ends up being to try to get there as Taco resumes their co-hosting role. So yeah, challenge is to get a recovery center. There apparently are recovery centers being sold at Walmart because you can get everything at Walmart. You know, remember, like if it's a Walmart, you can get everything. Remember, trust in consumerism. So yeah, Object Mart has everything, including a recovery center, and then we end up having everybody's tactic pretty much boils down to they gotta do that, right? Rectangle ends up bringing them over to a cast. It doesn't turn to their cast, right, where TNT originally was. However, they don't know that TNT actually switched cast to go for the Battle for IDK. So then Rectangle goes like, okay, well, I guess you have to adventure to find it. And they end up looking around a bunch of other universe. I don't know why he has to adventure to find it. I mean, like, they would know, right? Like, it would be Pepsi's show, theoretically. But I guess the Battle for IDK people might not know, right? Because they're, like, competing in, like, a weird show, and they don't know that Pepsi... I mean, they eventually found out that, oh, Pepsi hosted a thing in 2001. But, I mean, he hosted a thing in 2001 that is hardly... like... indicative of them knowing about Battle for PS5, for crying out loud. But yeah, they eventually end up going down in the hole and find TNT down there. Yippee! And they proceed to go over... and getting out using a grappling hook that Coca-Cola had, or Coke bottle, whatever you call it. Then we end up having water, order that indeed go to, it reaches the Object Mart first, and they successfully get the vending machine. They get to the recovery center, with some money, and then they fight with Target Bag for it until SSB2 at the last second manages to come in with a double kill. Truly a testament to Gamer. And then proceeds to hand it over to Drive, and they win the final immunity, yes, because their episode 11 is the finale, even though there's going to be 5 people remaining, which is very interesting. They choose Target Back to be immune with them, which means that everybody else is there. Pepsi eventually gets revived at the recovery center, which means that a recovery center can revive Pepsi. Again, interesting detail, because, for example, can the recovery center, like Pepsi can revive everybody? Can the recovery center revive SSB1? I mean, I don't know. Because maybe it's like, oh, it would need to be alive when the recovery center was active. But, like, you know, in the same way, it's like Pepsi wasn't alive back when the recovery center was bought. So theoretically, he shouldn't know about Pepsi, right? Like, it's really intriguing, this stuff. Like, It's intriguing in some interesting ways. Then we end up having the elimination, where it's a double elimination, because of course we need to get ourselves down there. This season yet again has decided that it wants to speed itself the fuck up. It's doing a freaking double elim here into a finale in the next episode with an elimination at the start, right? Like it's trying to play itself out super fast because it has to. At least here it feels a little bit more reasonable than Battle for I Don't Know, because Battle for I Don't Know, we're like halfway. Here we're at least like 2/3 done, right? Like it would have been like 15 episodes otherwise. Like it's okay, right? Like I get it. Tag went to hosting the elimination and eliminate contestants based on the votes of the people, where water and face mask based on the contestants' votes, so they have been eliminated. I don't know why, to be 100% honest, but they have been indeed voted off, and they end up dipping away. So goodbye. They end up hosting the finale. A little bit of a thing that I find personally a little bit annoying is that there's a little bit of a writing inconsistency here. Is that like, okay, so the next episode is the finale, but kind of a random time. I don't mind the idea of Drive hosting the finale early because they're trying to like kind of get everybody out of here, right? As an eliminated contestant, as a contestant who wants to kind of be freed, right? They need to get everybody out of there, so they're trying to speed up the show. So that makes sense. I'm just not a big fan of the fact that Drive that Pepsi resumes hosting. Right, and then when Pepsi resumes hosting, they immediately are like playing along to the same rules of, hey, the next episode is the finale. Because as far as Pepsi knows, they don't know that the next episode is the finale. That Drive said that, right? Like, and that means that they're just saying it as if the other fellas know, but they don't know. Right, realistically. And it's like, how is it possible that those two would have been on the same exact page independently that they were going to speed up the show here to have the finale be in the next episode? Like, there's no way that these two would agree on that, right? Because it's just kind of an unlikely situation. It's an unlikely scenario. So having the fact that that's a thing is definitely suspicious. Definitely gives off the rap of like sometimes, you know, in writing you forget the mentality, right? Like you forget that like just because that you've written a thing, if it's like this is an interesting thing about writing, right? Is you gotta think about it. Is that you have all of the information, the character doesn't, right? So therefore, like when we end up seeing a scene, right, of two characters talking, right, then later we have another character who wasn't in that scene be able to know about that. That doesn't work, right? Because like there's a clash. They weren't there, so they wouldn't be able to know this. In the same way, Pepsi was dead when Drive talked about the next episode being the finale, right? And then here Pepsi comes in and knows that it's the finale. Why? I understand. It's a really easy mistake to make because it's like, yeah, you have all of the information about what the next episode is actually going to be, so therefore Pepsi also does. However, Pepsi doesn't know about the information of the final episode given by Drive, so they would be capable of making it their own. And I think that the specifics of how this last episode plays out is so like specific that I really doubt that they would have the same opinion, but okay. Then we end up having the voting. Yes, viewer voting. Viewer voting has not happened in the show, so it's nice to get to see it a little bit. We get to vote for one person to be eliminated. Who do you want to get eliminated? No idea, because I'm not sure what the viewers are exactly on here. I would say that they would probably want to eliminate somebody like Bubblegum, right? Because Bubblegum being a little bit evil, maybe, a bit like mean-ish in general, has had a couple of lash outs, of course, being like the little manipulative type. So I'd probably predict that maybe they'll get out first. Then because of it, so based on the viewer votes, let's go with that. But there's a couple of interesting possibilities. And then in the meantime, Evil Pepsi is coming in and is ready to take over the world tomorrow. Yes, they're getting ready because they're out here. You know, for some reason they decided that they could only take over the world on the final episode, not any before. They've been stalling out for like all of these days. They started their plan like a week ago in universe, right? And by the time they like kidnapped a couple of people, and that's about it. It's so hilarious. We literally don't know to this day why they kidnapped these random people. We just don't know. It is not knowledge that was given to us, and that is really, really dumb. But all right. It's time to discover everything because it's time for the finale. So, episode 11, Demise awaits. Okay, so that is a battle for PlayStation 5 Season 2, Episode 11. So, as Battle for PlayStation 5 Season 2 Episode 11 is the finale, is the longest episode so far of the series because it has to, of course, solve everything. So first we start off here with our fellas in the closet who are trying to get out. We get to see for nearly the first time the proper newer Indian flag voice. We didn't really need to see it. And yep, it's a voice with an Indian accent. It's something that is a little bit interesting. It's a discussion that we've covered before in situations like. BFCF, right? Battle for Country Flag, where every contestant is a country flag, right? Where should they have voices like that? It's a little bit more complicated. In my opinion, I think that. If you get, especially somebody who's like more somebody from the region to do the voice, I think that's perfectly suitable. However, I'm not sure if I'd be a big fan of just, taking a character and doing a fake accent on it, right? That's, I think, my personal perspective on, like, if this is okay or whatever, right? But, like, in general, I think that I'll give it a pass, alright? Especially because, it's not that important. But, yeah, it's not that important of a character in the grand scheme of things. But, yeah, it's a thing. Anyways, they proceed to manage to get... they don't get out, but Diamond Bug gets in, basically. And they go like, yo, let's get ourselves out of here. And it's like, well, yeah, but I'm kind of also stuck here. I would just stalk outside instead of inside. And it turns out this because their diamond is currently missing, apparently. They gave them powers 30 years ago. However, there is currently... Wait. Their diamond is currently missing, theoretically, of a animation error. It was there when he showed up. When he showed up, the diamond was there. It's not there on the next shot because it's not supposed to be. But animation error, and it is. Oops. You gotta... do a watch through of your episode before you release it. Come on now. But we then proceed to have our intro for the finale time. I believe it's actually reverted, right? I don't know. It's technically a different version again, because you can see that this time it doesn't fade into the green when heading into the logo transition for water, right? However, the assets still seem to be new, at least for a character like Sheets it is. So, and I think also Target Bag, which gets like a mild rework. So, yeah, it's like that would make like the 6th intro variant of this season, right? Which is hilarious. That is so many intro variants. But like that's like more an average of 0.6 per episode. Or whatever, but alright. We then end up having the fellas down there get bored as the debut fails, end up dropping down there, and then we also have yet again Target Bag accidentally, sleepwalk out of the house. I don't even know what you're doing. But yeah, speaking of which, by the way, sorry about those co-host debutantes. You know what I find interesting? Barbados, because we had a Indian flag was just the flag itself, not on a pole, and then it got redesigned to place the Indian flag on a pole. So I'm a bit wondering, if that is better. If that is the better way to do it, apparently, because we redesigned it like that, why is it that Barbados flag returns to just being a flag without being on a pole? Wouldn't it make more sense for it to also be on a pole? Because, that's the design that was considered better, right? I thought so. But apparently not, maybe. Or maybe it's to give variety. But the Indian flag redesigned it right before Barbados flag ever existed, so it can be, right? So I don't know. Or maybe it was made on the other direction. Oh, I guess. I don't know. But I find a little bit of an interesting detail to redesign a character like that, and then a character that's exactly the same, you don't redesign, right? So, I don't really know. Either way, we end up having ice cream, which, by the way, you got a severe redesign. You're just not an ice cream. Who are you, ice cream? Who are you? It's just a completely different character. The other character was an ice cream cone. This is an ice cream, freaking, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like those cups, right? This is a different character. You have a scarf, of course, which is nice. I like that detail. But eventually they're like, hello, I want to get back to the co-hosting position, which I like how they can just do that. They all fired and then just went back and said, I would like to do this, and they proceed to do it because Taco's currently not in town. So they proceed to host the elimination. Nobody questions who this is, but I guess again, Ice Cream was up around. This is a very different design for Ice Cream, but okay. the viewers have spoken, and they have spoken to eliminate, well, technically both Bubblegum and Target Bag, because they got an equal 9 votes. So who is getting out? Well, the character getting out is the one that wins the coin flip. It turned out that Bubblegum won the coin flip, so Target Bag has been eliminated, and 4 are now left in the finale. Taco tries to get back. The door is locked. Taco's getting done dirty, bro. Poor Taco. Taco has done nothing wrong this entire time. I noticed Taco has just been out here living life, like, you know, doing co-hosting duties, doing it pretty well, you know. I don't think Taco ever fucked anything up, but we just keep getting done dirty. You can tell that this Pepsi, I don't know what it is about it. I don't know, but I think Pepsi and this ice cream fella, I'm suspicious of him, because you'll notice that Pepsi gives a lot of favoritism towards this ice cream. I'm still remembering in like episode 4 or whatever, right, where like the ice cream was like sleeping. It was like, hey, look, is it all good, you know, if you're sleeping like that? I'm sorry, Pepsi, you have never been this nice in your whole life. And then you eventually fire them after 10 episodes and doing nothing, which is a lot of patience. And then as soon as like on the first instance of them wanting to come back, you'd be like, oh yeah, join. Like immediately, way more than you want to do your co-host that was voted in by the public that actually hosts, right? Like, I don't know why I don't know. I'm feeling like Pepsi might like this ice cream. I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm feeling some bonds here. But either way, we end up having the next challenge. So mini challenge number 1, get to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Dice finds a cannon. The shark could just YOLOs it, which means that Bubblegum is out as well. So they end up getting out in 4th place. So 3 remain. They end up apologizing to Drive, and they have officially reconciliated, or whatever it's called. Next challenge, kick a can into a bin. Yes, I know, right? This is content. Somehow, we managed to have Dice kick it into the bin. Although I'm going to be 100% honest, that kick would never, ever, forever make it into the bin. It was kicked like at ground level. It got to no elevation. And like you can see the way it's animated, it's just going perfectly to the right, and then it randomly swooshes up so it can drop down. I don't think this was how physics works. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think the guy who invented physics intended it to work like that. But yeah, it drops in, so good stuff there, Dice. Ended up going into the finale. And then at the last second, we end up having TSSB end up missing, and then we end up having SSB, and they're getting eliminated because Shark managed to do it. So Shark and Bubblegum are the final 2. Good stuff for them. Taco dies because the freaking evil Pepsi ends up coming in and going like, hey, would you like to die? Yes. So they proceed to go and do that. And in the meantime, we end up having it, and then after the final 2 decided, it is officially time to attack. Evil Pepsi coming in at the last possible second to try to destroy everything. So they proceed to start to take down everybody one by one. As soon as anybody comes in with a little bit of an objection, he comes in with the freeze ray, right? Because as we know in lore, they were the one who like froze. Who did they fight? Froze Bubblegum, right? And for 30 years or whatever. So they're doing that. In the meantime, the fellas over in IRL keep trying to get out. And they remain relatively stuck there until eventually they manage to successfully find their way onto the island. Everybody's happy, like, yay, Diamond Book, epic, you're cool. But then they immediately proceed to get frozen, like everybody's getting frozen, right? It's not great. And then our finalists end up getting sent back into IRL. And here, as soon as IRL's job, we end up having some assistants, such as Hand, which we have never seen before, but you apparently exist. The stylist fella saying to go with the other fellas, right? It's just taking a while, okay? The assistants are not the greatest skilled fighters ever. So in the meantime, we end up having the fella, the little machine, a little emotional, psychological damage as they end up spawning the black hole and vortex that sucks up everybody in the beach, which means that everybody proceeds to die slowly, and then the fellas over in the IRL end up looking at it like, no. Right, so, Dice going like, water, and then Shark ends up going like, I don't know anybody. So they end up doing, I'm lonely. So they end up doing all that, and they end up having Firebug shows up as another assist. How many assistants do you need? You see, this is why you spend this is why you spend the entire time doing nothing. But either way, they end up having the challenge, which is to murder them. Now, remember how, this guy was super strong and super powerful and super gamer? Remember this Pepsi? Well, this guy randomly decided, what if I wasn't strong anymore, and just allowed myself to get absolutely destroyed, right? Like, I'm sorry, you can, teleport, you can do freeze rays, you can do everything, and you're telling me that your weakness is when Dice kicks you into an air fryer. You can't TP away from that. You can't do nothing. No, nothing. At that moment, no more abilities, no more capabilities. Maybe you ran out of power or something. I'm telling you, the battle for I don't know if it. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's the explanation. Because I'm not understanding how this guy just forgot to use all of his powers. Every time this guy saw a person, a person breathed in their general direction, they were like, pew, you are frozen now. But now Dice is able to go pew, 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 absolutely kick this guy's ass, and he's not doing anything. Like, come on now, get on with it. What is this, Pepsi, man? Like, bro. But either way, we end up having I don't even know. We end up having them successfully going to the air fryer, and then we have the button that randomly appears that allows everybody to come back, which, yippee, everybody is back, which means that Dice successfully wins the deleted season. Good stuff, Dice, good stuff. I still agree that Shark was one of the dangerous contestants, even though they barely survived every elimination. They managed to make it pretty far and were pretty valiant effort, but overall, did Dice embody the season in the way that I'd wanted to? I would say yeah, because they definitely were one of the characters that got the most attention. They were a character that was very focused in on challenges, that had relations going on, right? That interacted, that cared about competing, that in general did pretty alright. So I don't mind it. They were maybe a little bit too no, they're maybe too a little bit in a bubble, in the sense that of course they weren't necessarily too connected to many other people, right? Like Dice, the amount of interaction they had with people outside of water, not that many, right? Not as many as there realistically should be. However, in general, I mean, it's alright, right? Again, win the deleted season, so good stuff, good job. And then this hot guy comes back, I believe the old host of the old thing from 30 years ago. They end up getting welcome back. Not sure how you got here, but we'll just go with it. So they end up eventually, that Diamond Book just happens to have another PS5, so they end up giving them to Dice anyway. So Dice now has the deleted season and a PS5, courtesy of Diamond Book. This is why Diamond Book is the best, or the worst, according to the worst to best list, whatever the fuck that means. Worst to best means it starts at the worst, and number one's Diamond Book. Come on now. Then the other fellas that, remember, got confiscated from other shows while they were exploring. I forgot who was exploring. The IDK contestants end up also chilling out. Taco's back, so that's fair. And then we have ourselves some extra long credits, because we need ourselves some extra long vibes. Shout out to Kind Master. But either way, what I think of this season, I think that this season 2 was definitely also, I would say, an improvement. It was a little bit of an improvement over IDK, right? Where as season 1 paced itself way too slow, season 1.5 paced itself way too fast. I felt like this definitely got itself back in order. I saw the criticism that people were making there on this season from time to time, that sometimes it wasn't necessarily too focused on polish, right? Which means that, it could always, like, it always could have taken that extra step, shown that scene a little bit more vigor, especially in the voice acting department. Like, yeah, in the voice acting department, it always could have taken that extra step, right? Like, there's a lot of the times where a line got, like, mildly misspoken, right? Or, like, we stumbled upon the words a little bit, right? And I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, you can always just re-record the line, right? And that's why I think some people complain, because voice has one of those things where it's like, yeah, okay, you stumbled upon the line, that's fine, re-record it, right? It's one of those things where, like, it feels lazy when a non-perfect line gets in, because you can just redo it, right? Like, it doesn't take that long. So I understand the criticism. Personally, I didn't criticize it too much, not because it's not necessarily an issue. I would agree that it does count as an issue in my eyes. I would it's one of those things where you kind of get used to it, right? Like you get used to the vibe of it, right? In the same way that eventually after a little bit I stopped talking about the IDK super fast speed spacing, right? Because, like, at a certain point you start to get like, okay, yo, these are the vibes, right? It's kind of like if I diss a show that has a weird animation style, it's be like, oh, this show, I don't know, if a show was animated in a lower frame rate, right, I can go like, oh, this show's animated in a lower frame rate, and I could say that in every episode, and it would be technically a true complaint for every episode, but, like, at a certain point, it's like, okay, I get it, right? Like, this is just kind of how we roll around here. So we don't necessarily need to take it too, like, we don't need to take it too on the for real, right? For those, like, general things that don't seem to change, right? But you kind of take it on the case by case basis. New things that I've noticed, new things that I in general think that, this show can act as a puzzle piece for. But yeah, overall, I'll be definitely interested into checking out season 3 in due time, which I don't think, pretty much definitely not going to be in this video. But yeah, I'll be curious to be able to check out season 3. As it is incoming. However, before we can actually do that, we will need at least another day, because this season is big. It is big boy, right? And season 3 would be another, like, hour, maybe more, to this video. It might be even 2 hours. Like, it is aggressive. So yeah, we're taking a look at a lot of big series lately. There's not much to say about it. Let's do ourselves an outro now. Alright, and with that is all for today's episode. I've recorded every section, including the BFDIE here, and therefore I can do the true outros. That is all for this video. Yeah, it's just kind of the unfortunate, man. Like, the latest things that we've taken a look at have just been long, Like, that's just kind of the thing about it, and this is another one that's on the list, right? I'm not specifically choosing. I want to be perfectly fair with the things that I cover, right? I'm covering things in order, because I don't want to do bias. I don't want to do that, oh, this show's long, so I'm specifically doing it later, right? Because I just don't feel right doing that. Like, even though, yes, it would probably be overall beneficial, I don't feel right doing that, right? So I'll rather put everything else back and do the thing in an order, in an objective order, rather than properly sort everything else out. All right. So yeah, that is what we are currently up to. We'll be doing season 3 of Battle for PlayStation 5 in the next episode. In what is, in the past, like, 2 weeks, the third time we've had to do a 2-parter for a season, for one show in particular. However, these shows, they gotta stop being 5 hours long. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, hopefully we can get that done. Maybe tomorrow. No promises, though. We'll try our absolute hardest. We'll try our best. And we'll see how far we get. But that is all for BFDIE. We're all cut up. For Battle for PlayStation 5, we're getting there. See you next time. Goodbye.